Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about What If Naruto CO Justice League Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Harley knew she was fucked. Fucked. Her squad and she were pinned down as men with automatic weapons rained down bullets. Their cover wouldn't last long. She could see the bullet indentations pierced into the heavy metal machinery she'd hidden behind. The bullets wouldn't hurt Clayface. King Shark was pretty durable, but the amount of gunfire would still slow them down. Worse yet, Ivy hadn't awoken yet from whatever they'd injected her with. What should I do? I've got to get Ivy out of her, she thought as she looked at her best friend / maybe lover. When she'd heard Ivy had been kidnapped, she was beside herself. Harley could admit she hadn't crafted the most solid plan, but she also hadn't known who was really behind the abduction. If she, somehow, survived this, she'd make sure he died slowly, as she'd found someone she hated more than even the Joker. Harley, we can't stay here for much longer, Clayface said. He wasn't wrong, but stating the obvious wasn't helpful. He had a brain just like she did. Why couldn't he be solution-oriented instead of just pointing out problems? That's like the person who only brings cups to the office function but eats more than their share of the brownies. No one likes you, Sharon, and you can fuck right off. Harley let go of the digression. She could faintly hear sounds of gunmen getting closer. If she could take one of them down and steal their gun, she might have a chance to shoot her way out. Her two big mopes getting Ivy out of here. Steeling herself, Harley saw two bodies drop from above, the sound of the tossed object following after. Both gunmen dead, some kind of knife plunged into both of their foreheads. Soon, she heard more bodies dropping as those left alive stirred in confusion. It's coming from the corridor, aim there, one goon said. What's the point? I don't see no, another one replied before meeting his end with a similar knife. What the fuck is going on? Harley whispered, shouted, the gunfire causing a ringing in her ears. I don't know, but I am very intrigued, King Shark answered. The henchmen completely shift their focus on the hallway, firing recklessly into the darkened passageway. But inexplicably, the bullets reverse course, peppering the very people who shot them. The sole remaining thug tried to run away, but a gust of air is felt and Harley's crew watches as the man's head falls from his body. Harley quickly grabs one of the rifles. Whoever killed all those men may have helped her, but the enemy of her enemy was not her friend. That strange bedfellow shit was for heroes. Drop the gun, I'm not here for you, Harley, a voice said as a body emerged from the shadows. Roughly 6 feet tall, two-toned black and red pants with body armor to match. Knives holstered on either leg and a sword on his back. The most striking part of the outfit was the mask, all black with red outlines that make it look like a snarling fox. Deathstroke? Clayface asked. No. Sensei isn't even in this part of the world right now. But enough questions, get Ivy out of here. You won't run into any opposition on your way out. Why are you helping us? Harley asked, gun aimed at the mystery man and finger on the trigger. My motives aren't mission critical. Mr. Rifle says otherwise, Harley said. But soon felt the rifle split into 2 pieces. How? I'm running out of patience. Do you want to save Pam or not? The man said in aggravation. While her name wasn't a secret, no one called her Pam. Well, almost no one. Naruto? She asked in disbelief. Ivy's computer geek boyfriend? It wasn't possible, but as she watched him remove the mask, she couldn't refute what her eyes were telling her. How? You are wasting time. Get Pam out of here. While you do what? Harley questioned. I'm going to make sure what happened today won't ever happen again, Naruto said. Harley, he's right, we should go, said Clayface. You two head out, I'll be right there, Harley replied. She was relieved when they complied. Now alone, she looked at Naruto, reassessing everything she thought she knew. You've been keeping secrets, lying to Ivy. You really want to talk to me about lies, Harley? Really? He asked, a stern edge to his voice. She went wide-eyed at the implication. Look, it doesn't matter. Just be good to her, Harley. And here, Naruto said, removing a key from a pouch on his leg. Pam will know what this unlocks. She didn't mean it just happened. I know. Sometimes flowers outgrow their initial environment. Just tell her not to feel guilty, these things just happen, Naruto said. His small, sad smile, the only hint of his true emotions, and Harley begrudgingly elevated her opinion of the geek. He was all right in her book. Now go. And if you break her heart, I'll kill you. His smile widened at his last words, slightly unnerving the former sidekick. You aren't joking, are you? Harley asked. Naruto just shrugged and ran along. His business wasn't done. Lex Luthor watched, calmly, as hired thugs were ruthlessly cut down, wholly unable to mount even a hint of an offensive against their assailant. Maelstrom, how fitting, Lex thought. He was glad he left Mercy in Metropolis, it was better this way. Soon, the young warrior walked into his office as if he owned. Back straight, steps even, confident but alert. You had to know, the young man said. You had to. I overlooked a lot, basically everything, but you had to know this was the line you shouldn't cross. I thought once she cheated on you, twice no less, she was fair game. No, you didn't, Naruto said, not even mildly surprised. Lex knew. He always knew. Lex, elbows resting on the wooden desk, steepled his hands together, as if he were deeply considering Naruto's words. Let's agree to disagree, he offered. You only say that when you're caught in a lie. Lex laughed but didn't contradict the accusation. There are a lot of people that would label you a hero for what you're about to do. Maybe you should consider a career change. Do not put me in the same category as the pajama people. The only things more infantile than their morality are their methods. I'd have to agree, but I've always been morally flexible. You can be just as rigid in your immorality as they are in their righteousness, but we've wandered off topic. I'm assuming you have some kind of bullshit, cost more than the GDP of the European Union, superweapon to defend yourself with. Of course, I am Lex Luthor. Genius mogul and supervillain. And you have a sword. I thought you'd have more guys. Life is filled with disappointments. It would shame me if I were one of them. Shall we get on with it then? I have PLA. Lex's sentence died in his throat as he felt a hand on his shoulder and a small jolt of electricity leading to sudden cardiac arrest. He couldn't breathe, consciousness was leaving him rapidly, but he needed to get this last bit out, his final words. And no more hiding, Lex said as he looked his killer in his eyes. Soon he closed them and slumped in his chair. Lex Luthor was dead. Naruto stared out the window behind Lex. Gotham could be beautiful from the right vantage, but Naruto didn't see that, his vision somewhere else. He briefly rubbed his eyes and cleared his throat while retrieving his phone. It only took 2 rings for the person to pick up. Master Naruto? Yes, it's me, Mr. Wintergreen. Please oversee the relocation of my belongings back to Metropolis. I will be leaving Gotham within the hour. Of course, Master Naruto, it will be done. Do you require anything else? Not now, but in the coming days. I'll see you in Metropolis. Bye. Goodbye, sir. 2 hours later, eyelids that felt as heavy as boulders struggled to open, but her persistence was rewarded when she stared into the blue eyes of her heart's desire. Ivy smiled. You saved me, she said, and watched Harley nod. Testing to see if her strength had returned, Ivy attempted to pull Harley toward her, successfully managing to kiss her. Harley was eager to return the gesture, and did so before pulling away, confusing Ivy as she had. Not that I don't welcome your show of gratitude, but there's something you need to know about your rescue, Harley started. I had help. I assumed the boys helped, and I'll make sure to thank them later, Ivy said, still unsure of why that was necessary to share. Harley shook her head, deepening the confusion. They were there, well, King Shark and Clayface, but they aren't who I meant. Ivy watched as Harley got tense and started to play with her fingers. When I learned you got kidnapped, and by Lex Luthor of all people, I was frantic. I didn't have the best plan, I just knew I needed to get you out. We managed to find you and started out, but were discovered soon after. We got pinned down, and I wasn't sure we were going to survive. Then that other person arrived and managed to kill all of the gunmen. He even deflected bullets and made a blade out of wind, I think. Ivy couldn't think of a single person she knew that could do all of that and would to save her. She sensed there was more to the story and remained quiet so as to not cause Harley to lose her nerve. A very real concern as she sunk in on herself the more she shared. It was becoming concerning. She reached and grabbed one of Harley's hands, giving it a gentle squeeze. It seemed to settle her, somewhat, as she took a deep breath to continue. To make a weird story short, it was Naruto. He's a meta or something and well-trained. That's not remotely possible, Harley, and it isn't funny, Ivy said in a clipped tone. Her disbelief died when Harley showed her the goldenrod key. It was to a private area only Naruto and she knew about. I don't understand, she whispered. He also knew about us. I don't know how, but he did. Even threatened to kill me if I broke your heart, Harley finished in an attempt to get Ivy to laugh, but she only looked crushed. Why did he never say anything? All this time, I thought he wouldn't understand. If he'd only been honest, then maybe Ivy killed the last of that thought. She knew he knew about her activities, but she always felt like it was something she had to hide or keep separate. It started to drive a wedge as she never felt completely accepted by him, even though she knew he loved her. It left her open, and that's how something blossomed with Harley. She didn't know how to feel. To regret it felt disrespectful to Harley, to not felt dishonest. I need some alone time. If he left me that key, there was something there he wanted me to see. I'll do that and we can talk later, Ivy said. Harley nodded and watched her lover exit, slightly afraid of the thoughts Ivy hadn't shared. The unexpected death of Lex Luthor sent shockwaves through the legitimate and illegitimate global economies. Nations wondered about their existing arms deals, cartels and terrorist cells wondered the same thing. Employees feared for their jobs, henchmen did the same. Lex was a uniquely consequential figure, and his removal from the world was upsetting systems of order that had him as a linchpin. Everyone knew change was inevitable, almost no one could predict what that change would be. None were as sure, nor as trepidatious about the oncoming change than Metropolis's greatest protector. He sat at the large table where decisions about the Justice League were debated and voted upon by the original members. He was not alone, as the original 7 watched a broadcast waiting for a press conference. It was unknown who would be speaking, only that Luthor's longtime assistant had organized it to occur moments after his private burial ceremony. Clark had an inkling of who it might be, and given the way Bruce was looking at him, he must not have been hiding it well enough. He was saved by Wally pestering the detective. "And you're sure there was no evidence of foul play, Bats?" he asked as he munched on popcorn. "I couldn't find any, but that doesn't mean his death was natural. That it coincided with him abducting Poison Ivy is a little too convenient. Besides, Luthor was otherwise healthy." "Did you speak with Poison Ivy?" Jon Stewart asked, and Bruce shook his head. "She was the victim. I could hardly shake her down over it. I also haven't been able to find her to even try. If it was murder, we may have a vigilante on our hands, one with no compunction about lethal violence." "That is concerning," Jon said. All nodded in agreement, all but Clark. They heard the reporter, Melanie Mann, say the press conference was about to begin, and Clark had his suspicions confirmed when a young, red-haired male stepped up to the podium. His lavender eyes swept across the mass of press and onlookers, but Clark could tell he wasn't fazed. Lex Luthor was a great man. He had over 2,000 patents to his name before he turned 30. Headed one of the largest firms in the world, employing people on near every continent. He funded scholarships and the arts, along with the occasional political campaign. He was a man of consequence. Lex Luthor was a great man, but he was not often a good one. I should know this better than anyone, as he was my father. Gasps could be heard through the mics of the news organizations, and while no audible reactions were made at the watchtower, there were several surprised faces around the table. Bruce looked toward Clark and swiftly came to a conclusion. "You already knew, didn't you?" "I will explain when he is done speaking," Clark said. "My father adopted me when I was just a baby, but kept me hidden to keep me safe and give me a chance to build my own name free of his shadow. Some of you may know me as the founder of Uzunami Incorporated, but I could not have launched my company how I did, when I did, without the resources my father granted me access to. He was not a natural father, but he was a supportive one, sparing no expense to help me realize my potential. He could be strict, funny, bullheaded, kind, understanding, and so many other things. He was truly good to me, and while we fell out, I still loved him, and I have no doubt he loved me, too. That is why it hurts so much that so much of his goodness seemed to be directed toward me and not the world. I believe my father wanted to be good, worked at it even. There was just always something inside him that worked harder to turn him away. I say all this for 2 reasons. My father deserves to be understood in his entirety, the merits and the flaws. It isn't easy, not even for me, but just like I can't forget his support and encouragement, I also can't ignore the harm he's caused. The second reason is to state, unequivocally, changes will be coming. LexCorp has been a great company. I want to see if it can be a good one. That is all I wish to say. I will not be taking any questions at this time, and I request you respect my mourning period. Thank you and good day." Clark turned off the television and saw 6 expectant faces staring at him, Bruce voicing the consensus thought. "You knew Lex Luthor had a son and you never said anything?" "Why would I have? Last I checked, we keep information on people who have broken laws, not on their relatives, and certainly not children." "Please, Cal, explain," Diana requested. "It was about 14 years ago. Intergang attempted a heist. It went south and a lot of people got hurt, some even killed before I got there. I overheard one of the members say something about Luthor's plan and nearly lost it. I scanned the city and couldn't find him. I opened my senses and eventually heard him. He was half a state away from Metropolis, but I didn't care. I crashed through his mansion, not even noticing the lack of security measures, and when I saw him he looked genuinely surprised, but it quickly morphed into fury. He wasn't the Lex I knew, he wasn't taunting or playing games. He came at me, barehanded, and it threw me off. But I easily subdued him, However, I hadn't paid enough attention to the fact we weren't alone, not until the strongest gust of wind I've ever felt knocked me away from Lex. It was followed up with a shock of lightning that felled me, momentarily. When I got back to my feet, I saw a much smaller version of Naruto in a defensive stance in front of Lex, holding a small blade. And I saw Lex's face. It wasn't smug or knowing or anything I'd expect. It was fear. He was afraid for his child. Lex offered to surrender, but Naruto wouldn't let me take him. He said if his father broke the law, then the police could get an arrest warrant, and they should have one for me for breaking and entering an assault. I stayed until the police arrived and left soon after. You had information on Ameda, one under the control of Lex Luthor, and you didn't tell us? Bruce growled. Yes. I did keep tabs on him, though. He enrolled in Caltech a year later, graduating in 2.5 years and then starting his company. Lex's being arrested was around the time the two fell out, and Naruto had minimal contact since. Naruto Uzumaki was dating Poison Ivy. You don't think that's relevant information? Bruce asked. You said you found no signs of foul play, so no. You can't be this naive, Hawkgirl said. A boy who can generate electricity and Lex dies of cardiac arrest. You think that's a coincidence? I think our best detective said he could find no proof of Lex having been murdered. So, what else is there? I want to question him, Bruce said. I wouldn't, at least not how you tend to question suspects. His two techniques were able to hurt me. The wind left a noticeable bruise and the lightning left scorch marks on my skin. Does he wield magic? Diana asked. I don't know, I only know he has abilities but has decided against using them. He isn't a hero and I have no evidence of him being a villain. What he does have is a negative view of heroes, so if we're going to talk to him you're going to use restraint. Mr. Wintergreen, Naruto spoke as he looked out the window over Metropolis. His penthouse overlooked the city, two-way glass surrounding the first floor of the spacious dwelling and open design. It was ostentatious, too much really but good for security, his father said. The glass was bullet, missile, and enhanced strength resistant. Building security lived on the floor beneath him, and only someone with the right clearance could get to the penthouse. Naruto didn't much care, but it allowed Lex to sleep better, so he didn't argue. Yes, Master Naruto, he replied. Any chance I can get you to stop calling me Master Naruto? You haven't been successful thus far, sir, but no one can deny your tenacity, the older man jested. Naruto laughed in response. Fine. I'm going to be having a guest soon. Can you please make sure she arrives unmolested? Of course, sir. Will there be anything else? No, just ensure she arrives and then knock off for the day. We won't need an audience. Very well, sir. Mr. Wintergreen departed and Naruto headed to the kitchen. He filled his electric kettle and set the temperature to 209 degrees. As it began to heat, Naruto retrieved a tea set and began adding cream to the pitcher, putting the infusers on top of the cups and grabbing the honey. By the time he arranged everything on his coffee table, the kettle alerted him it had reached its desired temp and there was a knock at the door. Come in, he spoke loudly as he filled the teapot with the hot water. His guest sat on the couch, not saying a word as he methodically filled the infuser with the hibiscus citrus blend and then poured hot water into both cups. How are you, Pam? He asked, breaking the ice or more like the floodgates. Why didn't you tell me you were a metahuman? She asked. Technically, I'm not, but I won't rest on such a loophole. I didn't tell you because I didn't feel like it mattered to our relationship. I use my abilities when the need arises and that's it, outside of training. When do you train? Daily. It helps. My abilities aren't innate in the way you might think and my skills can atrophy if I don't use them, so I train. I noticed you started adding muscle mass about 7 months ago, she said as she removed the infuser and started to prepare her tea. That was not the most welcome development. I've always managed to keep my musculature pretty lean, but I seem to be adding mass even when I don't want to. Haven't figured out why yet. Why would you care? Because I don't want to look like a D-bag coder that got swole because he used to get picked on. My industry is full of those. I'd rather not be their poster boy. Ivy let out a small laugh, but her eyes were still sad. I started to pull away because I was tired of not being able to share my life, all of my life, with you. I felt like you wouldn't understand a significant part of me you just couldn't get, and it turns out you would have understood. I would have been willing to try to understand you, regardless. I mean, I appreciate you not making me an accessory after the fact, but you could have shared your activities with me. Especially since I already knew. You never said anything. Didn't feel like anything needed to be said? Or I assumed you'd figure it out that some of the trouble you garnered in the past wasn't coming now. That was because of you? The eco-terrorist asked. There are some important people that know I'm a serious person, Naruto said casually. We could have been working together, Naruto. We could have accomplished so much. Every one of my employees makes over 100% above the median income. Every building I own is or near zero emissions. I fund campaigns of people who are open to serious climate legislation. Your fight is a collective action problem. I am working with you. Within corrupt systems. Yes, within corrupt systems, because those systems are how decisions are made. If you knew the right person to punch to solve things, I'd go do it right now. Closed fists only solve so much, and the real villains get to distract people with your deeds because people can't accurately gauge risks. I'm on your side. I'm always on your side, even if I never blow up a chemical plant. Entrenched interests won't ever let your politicians go far enough. Half measures are scarcely better than nothing. You may be right, Naruto conceded. I have other projects in the works, some that may benefit from your brilliant mind, he observed. I'm not a 9-to-5 kind of girl, not anymore. You could be a consultant and fleece me like everyone else does. Pam giggled despite herself. Don't make me laugh, I'm mad at you. Even if you'd known about my abilities, you'd still be disappointed in my unwillingness to adopt your methods. Ivy, reluctantly, conceded the point, but she couldn't get over the feeling things would have been different. Besides, I don't want to be involved with the pajama people. How's Harley? Naruto asked, rapidly changing the topic. You really want to know? I wouldn't have asked if I didn't, Naruto answered, and Ivy squinted at him. Shouldn't you be mad at me or something? I'm not happy you felt you had to leave, certainly not happy with you not waiting to screw Harley before you did, but I'm not blind. I know you haven't been happy, and while I tried to change it, the truth was I couldn't. Harley can be the kind of partner you want, however, I may feel about everything else, I can't begrudge you that. Though I love you too much to, went unsaid, but Ivy heard it all the same. Naruto scooted closer to Ivy and poked her in the ribs. You never answered the question, he said as he poked her again. And I'm not going, perv. Perv? How did you arrive at that conclusion? No one is that okay with their recent ex moving on unless they want some hot, lesbian sex deets. You are, no. I went to a public university. I've seen enough same-sex sexual awakenings to last a lifetime. Oh, Ivy said, her face gaining a mischievous smirk. I forgot you were a real slut in college. Excuse me? I was not a slut. You slept with your visiting professor. That was you, he said with great indignation while pointing at her. You still did it, like some thought. EW, don't say thought. Thought. Don't tell me what to do, thought. Oh, that's it, Naruto said with a mischievous smirk of his own. Lex invested a lot of time and money for Naruto to learn how to manipulate his energy, what he later learned was called chakra, to its full capacity. During their trials, they quickly discovered that Naruto was naturally stronger and faster than children his own age, and the gap only widened as he grew. They also stumbled upon something else, his volatile temper. The number of things that could truly anger him was small, but once angered it was just a short trip to blinding rage. His mother said his clan, among other things, tended to be hot-blooded. His bio dad said it was really just her. Naruto couldn't know what was true, but along with training his abilities, he had to learn to rein himself in. Harming someone because he was throwing a temper tantrum simply wasn't acceptable. He matured over the years, learned how to manage his emotions, and express them in healthy ways, but if something or someone got his blood to boiling, it wasn't always easy to pull back. Currently, the fool was under his foot, and the slightest amount of pressure could end him. A part of him wanted to do it, say damn the consequences and have it out with all in attendance. He was at a disadvantage, he knew, but what was life without its challenges? The detective and the princess were both manageable tasks. It was Boy Scout that was the issue. It wasn't that Naruto couldn't defeat him, he just had very specific win conditions, and an enraged Boy Scout probably wasn't one of them, not in this setting. Then there was Pam. If she got involved, even though all the heroes were in the wrong, they'd throw her back in Arkham or someplace worse. He breathed in slowly to calm his nerves, not fully aware of the menacing aura he'd been unleashing. He didn't need more enemies right now, not when he possibly just inherited some from his father. He needed to be calm, he needed to think clearly. It took a few moments, but he brought himself back and was now looking at Boy Scout with every ounce of condescension he could muster. Breaking and entering. Since this fool is a meta, attacking us would be aggravated assault. And as he belongs to an extra-legal organization that makes you lot a gang of costumed hoodlums that broke into my apartment. But we all know the police would never hold you responsible, so tell me what the fuck you want and get out. This is a misunderstanding, Clark said. We thought Ivy was attacking you. Naruto quirked his eyebrow at the League member. It was just as likely we were getting into a bit of rough play. Please tell me you lot don't go around preventing kinky sex acts? Clark chose to ignore the question and ask one of his own. Could you take your foot off Flash's throat and lower your weapon so we can talk? Asymmetrical demobilization? Don't think so, Boy Scout. If Princess lowers her weapon and you lot can manage to sit at my dining room table without the detective planting any surveillance equipment, I'll reward your show of good faith. Diana preferred to overpower the arrogant boy but heeded Clark's silent request. Moments later, all were sitting at Naruto's table, Clark at one end and Naruto the other, Pam to his right. What do you want? Naruto asked. Clark knew Bruce wanted to grill him about Lex's death, or his abilities, or any number of things. He understood, but Clark had a different aim. He believed Naruto had the capacity to do good. His professional life had demonstrated as much, but he also had the potential to be more, so he didn't let his friend start his interrogation. Have you ever considered becoming a hero? The Kryptonian was not surprised by the shocked faces of his fellow heroes, but he needed to at least try. Naruto, however, kept his face neutral. No. I can affect more lives with what I'm doing now. I have no desire to slip into the never-ending war of the pajama people. What's your problem with heroes? Wally asked. It's simple, really. The human experiment of self-rule is barely in its adolescence. The idea of imbuing the people with the ability to create laws and control the direction of their societies is a precious and delicate thing. But when individuals who call themselves heroes, many who can do things no ordinary person can, are allowed to flaunt the laws, it's barely different than returning to monarchies. You all are as above the law as you choose to be because you are good. Princess coerces confessions with her lasso? So what? Who needs the Fifth Amendment? Boy Scout X-rays people's homes. Why should he need a warrant? Batman leaves tracers and bugs where he pleases, breaks in where he chooses, shakes down whomever he wants, and it's just accepted. This isn't to say you don't do good, that you aren't tackling real threats, but your existence makes people believe that they could not have managed, that you must be beyond the laws they adhere to. That thinking is never not abused. You've already done so, Naruto pointed to the shattered glass. Ideas and beliefs outlive their creators, and maybe none of you will ever cross the line into full oppression, but can you promise none of your successors will? And by then, will the people even know? Will they care? A republic if you can keep it, and I'm not sure we can if we permit the logic of heroes. So what, you'll stand stalwartly against us? Diana asked. Naruto shook his head. They really weren't getting it. No, I don't want any involvement in your world, and that includes railing against you. If you leave me alone and don't hurt my people with your shenanigans, you won't hear a peep from me. I expect the same courtesy. It may not be that simple. Lex had enemies, and I don't mean us. They may seek you out in retaliation, Clark said. I have someone seeing to my security, and that will have to be enough for now. Is there anything else? Ivy, why did Lex abduct you? Batman asked. He wasn't going to waste the opportunity, regardless of what Superman's aims were. He wanted to learn to copy my abilities for some purpose he didn't explain, but the extraction of the genetic material would have killed me. How did you escape? Batman pressed. No clue, I just awoke in my apartment. She lied but knew he didn't believe her. To her relief, no further questions came. She wasn't used to being in the room with so many heroes and not having to avoid capture. The foursome left via the front door, at Naruto's behest, and she returned to the couch. She could hear him discussing something with Mr. Wintergreen over the phone, but mostly blocked the one-sided conversation out. He was the son of Lex Luthor. She completely understood why he didn't go shouting that from the rooftops, and hiding Naruto might have been the most decent thing Lex ever did, not that it was a long list. But his abilities, she still didn't understand why he hid them. Was he afraid that if he showed them he'd get pulled into their world regardless of his desires? Maybe? Did he not trust her? She didn't want to believe that was the reason, almost needed not to, despite the hypocrisy involved. It shouldn't matter if he trusted her or not, he'd been shown he was right if he hadn't. Still, some part of her wanted to know. No more. What could he do? Why did he have to train to maintain his skills? What was the real reason for not telling her? Pam, Naruto called out, finally getting her attention. Yes. Where'd you go? He asked. Sorry, deep in thought. You know Batman won't stop investigating Lex's death. Naruto shrugged. She was stuck between amusement and annoyance, as Batman was her fiercest enemy and Naruto didn't care about his legendary deductive skills at all. Seeing he wasn't going to comment further, Ivy asked one of the questions that had been plaguing her. How did you know about Harley and I? Does it matter? I think so. You've been so calm about it, and I don't understand how. Don't you feel betrayed? Angry? Anything? Yes, I felt both those things. And I could have yelled and carried on, but the truth was our relationship lasted about 8 weeks longer than it should have. Instead of just having the fight or discussion or whatever it would have been to end things, we avoided it. Several weeks later you screw Harley on your girls' trip. But we knew, we'd been preparing, slowly separating. Was it what I wanted? No, but I'd be lying to say I was blindsided. So, in that regard, what was I really mad over? The betrayal was really in name only. Sure, I was hurt, but more so because that really was the end. Naruto explained. It made sense to Pam but still felt incomplete. No one is that emotionally well adjusted, she said. Guess I'm just special, he quipped. Pam didn't try to push it any further, knowing Naruto could be evasive when he wanted to be. She'd come here for answers but didn't feel like she'd accomplished anything. He didn't know her, she could admit that, and it was confusing to expect that level of intimacy after the relationship. She'd just have to accept not knowing and kill the constant what-ifs going through her mind. I've taken up enough of your time. I need to get back to Gotham and my train will be departing soon, Pam explained. Oh, okay. You want a ride to the station? I can take a taxi. I wouldn't want to impose. She heard Naruto scoff at her being an imposition. It'll be fine, besides Issy's here, he replied. She couldn't fight back the smile. Well, I guess I can for Issy, she said. Grabbing her things, the two made their way to the garage. In a private section sat one car, a black-on-black 1964 Lincoln Continental convertible, and Pam suspects Naruto's truest love, Isabel, or Issy for short. Some might wonder how an eco-terrorist could have fond memories of a CO2-spewing hunk of metal, but Naruto had restored and retrofitted the car himself. 0 emissions and the smoothest ride money could buy. She was awash in memories as she approached the car. They'd had a lot of good times in that car. Their first time was in that car. It started as an impromptu day at the beach, followed by cruising during sunset. She'd recommended they stop somewhere to watch the night sky, but their stargazing was short-lived. It was a happy memory, one of many dates, trips, special occasions. She was slapped with the realization that this was likely her final ride as she slid into her seat. The drive was silent, the day's events something of an accurate portrait of the span of their relationship. It was fitting that it would end in silence, needed words never spoken and secrets never revealed. For the first time, it felt like the end, and she wasn't sure she was all right with it. Your detective skills are sloppy, Clark, Batman said as he sat in a terminal within the watchtower, more information about Naruto displayed on screen. Naruto was a minor when he was at Caltech and Ivy's never taught there. They met during his graduate training at UC Berkeley. I'm aware, Bruce. It just didn't seem relevant. He could feel the glare, a look so potent one didn't have to see it. How did he continue his business while getting a master's in biomedical engineering and a BA in sociology? There aren't enough hours in the day. Not without help or some kind of ability to manage it all. Okay, he has the ability of extreme time management. He'll make a great executive, Clark said. The glare seemed to gain a glare. When we left the building, the man escorting us out was William Wintergreen, Deathstroke's former man. Deathstroke became inactive for a spell several years ago, around the time Naruto would have been 9. 2 years of silence, and then Deathstroke shows up in the Markovian Revolution. On the side of the revolutionaries, Bruce pulled up multiple images of the notorious soldier of fortune. There were reports he had a young apprentice with him, but nothing could be confirmed. You think Lex Luthor sent his son to a war zone with a mercenary? To what end? Real-world experience. I tried to obtain Naruto's records at the boarding school he attended, but they have a level of encryption that would make Amanda Waller jealous. So, what, you think he's a sleeper agent? Lex's secret weapon? Clark asked with a frown. I don't know. After he left for Caltech, there is no record of Naruto ever having returned to Metropolis. Maybe Lex did see him as his ultimate weapon, maybe Naruto pushed back and kidnapping Ivy was an attempt to control his wayward son, but I have no doubts Naruto killed his father. He's a killer, Clark. That makes him a threat. Settle down. If he did kill Lex, then it is concerning, but it was to save Poison Ivy. If he were involved in a revolution, he was a child and didn't have much choice. People can change, he may just need better role models. He needs prison, Bruce stated forcefully. He crossed the line. You don't get to decide that. You can't be serious. Today you saw him, he had Flash at his mercy. Even accounting for him not moving at top speed and Ivy being his focus, Naruto still managed to take him down and hold Wonder Woman at bay. And because you said on this information, we have a well-trained meta, wealthy and educated, but we have no firm idea of his threat level. An alert prevented the duo from breaking out into a full-blown argument. Breaking news. Just now, Channel 8 News has obtained traffic cam footage of armed assailants attacking Naruto Uzumaki, the just-revealed adopted son of Lex Luthor. We do not know the final outcome of this assault, but officers are on the scene. More as the story develops. Neither wasted time getting to the transporter. Naruto pushed a button on the dash and a hidden compartment opened up, revealing a seal. He placed a hand down and channeled chakra, refueling his car before he left the parking lot. Building a chakra engine was no easy feat. He failed a lot and blew out engines, but when he finally nailed it, he couldn't stop beaming for a full day. Choosing a playlist, he put on a selection of jazz songs. He just wanted to listen and get lost on the road for a bit. It didn't take long for him to realize others had different plans for his evening. He picked up a tale. They'd been on him since he left the train station. Assassination, kidnapping, or something else? He couldn't be sure, but he was confident it'd be annoying in a really boring or trite way. Troublesome? Troublesome felt right. Dusk had finally lost its daily battle with the night, so finding clear streets was easier. He just needed to prepare. The first step was getting Mr. Wintergreen on the line. Mr. Wintergreen, I doubt I have a lot of time, so I'll be short. I've got a tale, 2 white vans doing front and follow, more on the rooftops. I can have a security team scramble immediately. Delay that until I see what they want. If it's a hit, then I'll take care of it. If it's an abduction, I'll let it happen. Hopefully, they'll reveal something useful in the attempt. Just as Naruto said that, he had to make a sharp turn to avoid the discharge from a sonic cannon, a LexCorp weapon. Naruto turned sharply and one of the vans gave up the pretense as it followed suit. He was at a disadvantage. Issy was built for comfort, not speed, but he needed to drag this chase out. One of the men in the van leaned out and took aim. Naruto turning down an alley allowed him to avoid the EMP blast. Whoever those guys were, they were well accustomed to advanced weaponry. Intergang, Naruto concluded. He'd heard rumors his father had gotten involved with the organization, but he'd hoped it'd been a lie. The other van stopped at the end of the alley, blocking the exit, and this EMP disruption couldn't be avoided. Issy sputtered and stopped. It's Intergang, and given what they've used, they aren't here to kill me. What do you need, Master Naruto? Get with Mercy. If Lex was involved with Intergang, she'd know about it, and their internal politics. Find a reliable lieutenant with enough of a power base. There's going to be a change in management before the night's over. I'll deliver the message personally, sir. Good man. Also, have someone come get Issy and drop her at Diego's. Do be careful, sir. No promises, Naruto said, hanging up right before he was pulled out of the car, hands zip-tied and a bag placed over his head before being shoved into a van. The ride was short, very few countermeasures were taken, so they were confident they weren't being followed. If they were right, that worked out. He was dragged out of the van and tossed on the floor. Whoever arranged this wanted him kneeling. It was so cliché. Just like the nondescript warehouse they brought him to. It looked very warehouse-y. He'd been expecting a little more for his first abduction. He was kinda like a big deal, you know. When the bag was removed, Naruto saw a Caucasian man of average height in a blue suit, smoking a cigarillo. He didn't have the first idea who the man was, but wouldn't have to wait long to find out. Hello, Mr. Uzumaki. I'm Maximilian Mannheim, and I've come to discuss our business arrangement. I wasn't aware we had an arrangement, Mr. Mannheim. Oh, Mr. Mannheim. You hear that, boys? The kid's got some respect. Your father, he paused to run his fingers from his chin outward, a profane gesture. He treated us like the help, stepped on our traditions, and we accepted it for his weapons. Well, brat, Daddy isn't here anymore, but you're still going to work with us. Or should I say for us? It might be nice to have such a large corporation to clean our money, among other things. You can sit in the big chair, but you'll be taking orders from me. What do you say to that? What happens if I say no? Oh, kid, you don't want to say no. No brings trouble. To you, to your employees. To that plant bitch. Your life will just be a never-ending cycle of misery until you give in, or you annoy me so much I kill you outright. Yours isn't the only outfit in the world, and weapon makers are eager to be weapon sellers. Naruto rolled his eyes at the ridiculous man. He didn't even care that they were criminals. If they could secure weapons without the need of intimidation, why wouldn't they? It was just stupid. Some idiot with a little power, and a grudge against his dad, just had to push things. What's your answer? Naruto didn't even waste words, instead shoving a lightning-covered fist through the man's heart so fast no one saw him move. They were not expecting to deal with a meta. As several members watched their down leader, it occurred to them that their target let himself be captured. He wanted to be here. It was a small deductive leap to get to why he'd do that, and what that meant for them. Finally, their goon reflexes kicked in as they reached for their weaponry, but they'd been too slow. Where once stood a corpse and Naruto was replaced by pure darkness. It surrounded them, covered them like a blanket. They were more likely to hit each other than the red-haired freak that tricked them. One of the more astute members tried to negotiate, but even his voice was swallowed by the unrelenting darkness. Fear of the dark, they heard an altogether too calm voice say from nowhere and everywhere in the room, is universal in children. Young minds trying to make sense of a world without light, shadows and sounds that defy explanation. In the darkness, there are monsters that are only dispelled by the light. Dread-filled Intergang members were being pushed, confronted with an enemy they couldn't see. A pair bumped into each other and both fired blindly, killing each other while the others stood unaware, trapped in the complete absence of light, of hope. I wonder if we ever truly stop being afraid of the dark, or just become better equipped to explain what exists. Now presented with something you can't understand, are you afraid? Do you wish for the light to dispel the monster before you? Or could the light be just as terrifying? Slowly, the light started to return, along with their other senses. Heat, searing heat filled the room. Their lungs burned and air was a precious commodity. They were surrounded by fire, they were going to burn to death. For many, the smoke inhalation had rendered them unable to even attempt to flee. Some had already immolated, others buried by falling debris. A common thought was disbelief, an inability to accept this was going to be their end. So terrified of the darkness, they just stood around and accepted death like cattle. Clark had been too late to save anyone from the fire. He knew Bruce wanted to have it out, wanted to point out who he assumed to be responsible, but Clark didn't need it. Bruce tended to overvalue his opinion and undervalue when to withhold it. Finding Naruto took no time at all, the young man cloistered in an unassuming Chinese restaurant. He drew some looks as he entered, may surprised to see Superman, but he had no time to glad hand with the public. He sat down opposite Naruto, the Luther heir having taken a table in the back, very discreet if not for the table full of food. The hardest part, well, the most annoying part about not sharing my abilities with Pam was having to hide how much I really ate, Naruto said, not looking up from his Kung Pao chicken. Tell me about it, Clark said in sympathy. Especially when you go out to eat and they just have a salad. Pam was a vegan. Dude, I was in a near constant state of hunger until I could dip out. I'm glad I didn't develop an eating disorder over it. It's also the reason Issy has pleather seats when she deserves so much better. Love makes fools of us all, Clark agreed, breaking apart a pair of chopsticks and reaching for a steamed dumpling, which Naruto moved. People who've come to lecture me get egg rolls, no dumplings. Then it's a good thing I'm not here to lecture you about your use of force, Clark said as he continued to reach for the delectable food item. Naruto raised an eyebrow in disbelief. What? If you aren't here to lecture me, then your shadow is going to be quite cross with you, Naruto said as he let Clark dig in, a restaurant employee bringing an extra plate for the hero. He'll manage, passed the Mapo. Clark spooned the spiced tofu dish onto his plate, getting some steamed rice and stir-fried vegetables. Any chance I can get some Kung Pao? Nope. Make do with the ginger beef. Those aren't equivalent. Hence making do. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I did order all of this for me. And this is a lot of food, even for you, Clark pointed out as he got some of the red snapper. The whole fried fish smelled amazing. I'm in mourning, I'm eating my feelings. Or you're starting to come into your man body. If it isn't illegal for you to comment on my physique, it should be, Pajama Man. Neither spoke after that, eating in silence. It was only nearing the meal's end did Clark finally get to why he was there. We need to talk about Lex, he said solemnly. No, we don't, Naruto shot back. How closely did you keep up with his activities these last few years? I tried to help in the countries he destabilized, but that was about it. Lex had started mining operations and other schemes to extract precious resources with no concern for the societal structures he was wrecking. Tribal conflicts, sectarian violence, misery followed him wherever he went. Clark nodded, having noticed the pattern. He wondered if part of Lex's goal was to engage with his estranged son. He's always hated me, but it kicked into overdrive after you left. He was into so much stuff, not even the Justice League could track it all. I can't help but feel I contributed to it, to his end. It got bad, and with him gone, you've got enemies, Naruto. And you're on Batman's radar. I can only do so much to protect you. You only told me the truth, Naruto said, taking a sip of water before continuing. He remembered when the Boy Scout showed him Lex's designs. An armor powered by his chakra, Naruto didn't get the big deal. He wasn't crazy about the idea. His chakra behaved better when molded internally and not manipulated from without, but his dad loved building shit. It wasn't until he continued skimming the blueprints that he saw the chip meant to remove his agency and make him little more than a drone. The ultimate weapon in his asinine war with the pajama people. Hard words were shared. Lex accused him of settling, of being a coward. Naruto retorted that Lex was just an Icarus in a world where people could fly. It only devolved from there, but in an effort to avoid doing to Lex what he'd have done to anyone else, he kept his distance. And in the end, it didn't matter. I'm not concerned. Whatever happens, happens. And with Pam gone, I've got no one to leverage and I will handle up if I need to. You certainly displayed as such. You didn't have to kill them, Naruto. And they didn't have to kidnap me. I'm a private citizen, so I haven't forsaken my right to self-defense just so I can fist fight and sleepwear. Besides, it was in Gang. Clark would never admit to some part of him agreeing with the sentiment, so he pressed on. Just be careful. If people leave me alone, I'll leave them alone. Clark, once again, couldn't argue. Naruto was much like a house cat. Or was it a slumbering tiger? Either way, he didn't go out of his way to start trouble, but it could easily find him. Another bit of news. My responsibilities are pulling me out of Metropolis more and more, so I'm bringing in some outside help. Naruto shrugged. It didn't matter to him, but Boy Scout's smirk made him nervous. It's Supergirl. Naruto paled and then got angry. Fuck you right to hell, Pajama Man, he stated while pointing at his dinner guest. His ire only intensified as the bastard had the gall to laugh, actually laugh. Clark and Naruto exit the restaurant after their shared meal to find three things: a LexCorp crew, said crew unloading a midnight blue 1967 Shelby Mustang GT 500, and finally Bruce. Ignoring his fellow leaguer, for a moment, Clark scoffs at the showy car. Could you be more of a rich kid cliché? Say that when you pick up a check, Naruto fired back. Besides, you've stayed out past curfew and the other campers at Sleepaway Tower need you. Sleep, because I'm a pajama person. Very clever, Clark observed dryly. Are you two done? Bruce interrupted, having had his fill of the pair. Naruto just rolled his eyes but didn't answer, choosing to walk to his car. He shot Clark a wave but left the heroes to their business. The night was annoying enough without having to put the detective in his place. Naruto acknowledged the LexCorp employee, thanking him for the last-minute service, and chatted the man up. Brandon, Naruto learned. We'll talk back at Watchtower. If we're doing this, I'm only doing it once and in front of everyone, Clark said, and left no room for argument. Bruce didn't argue and then too returned to the space station. In his car and on a secure connection, Naruto called Mr. Wintergreen, the man picking up on the second ring. Master Naruto, Mr. Wintergreen greeted. Mr. Wintergreen, Naruto returned. How did your meeting go? He asked as he zipped through the streets, stoplights reflecting off the impeccable paint job. There was some pushback, but news of the burned-down warehouse made him see reason. Or more likely, the casualties therein. Should I see to further measures should he forget himself, sir? No. If another message needs sending, I'll do it personally, but for now let's trust in his rational self-interest. Very well, sir. While I have you, I wish to request some personal time. A day, maybe two, starting tomorrow. Of course, Mr. Wintergreen. I'll be busy at the office getting things arranged, so why not take 4? You need a break. Much obliged, sir. If there is nothing else. Nope, we're good. You enjoy yourself and I'll see you in a few days. Talk to you later. Goodbye, sir. How many times can we discuss one kid? Shiera asked, annoyance visible to all present. If he's done something, let's take him down. If he hasn't, leave him alone. She accented her point by banging her fist on the table. I have to agree with Hawkgirl, John said. We are not a pre-crimes unit. We do not target people for what they may have done. He killed 12 people tonight, Batman replied. He let himself get kidnapped, so he'd be justified in doing so, but he burned them alive. We don't know if he burned them alive, as we don't know who or what started the fire, Clark said, to once again receive the glare. He was starting to get tired of it. The arson investigator said the point of origin was outside the building. As if someone with a high-powered flamethrower took aim. He couldn't find any evidence of an accelerant either. From the time you saw the blaze to your arrival, the entire structure and all in it were reduced to ash. That is alarming. You said it yourself, Superman, he has some kind of control of the elements, and they can bypass your invulnerability. He could have gotten stronger since then, or at the very least, better at using his powers. Maybe we should start taking a serious look at him, if for no other reason than to show him he can't do what he wants when he wants, John argued. He could see why the case was borderline. The young man had, arguably, acted in self-defense or defense of others in each incident, but that could be a clever smokescreen. Diana looked at Cal, wondering why he didn't seem bothered by Lex's son. What was the nature of their relationship? Why was he so indifferent to the man's violence? For someone who took great care to restrain himself, she didn't understand how he could be so nonchalant with someone who didn't, and voiced those very concerns, nearly pleading for Cal to make it make sense. It's simple, Naruto isn't one of us, and that makes us uncomfortable. When we deal with metas, they are generally heroes, villains, or people who are undergoing circumstances to eventually be one or the other. Naruto rejects our world and our rules. He'll tell you, as he told me tonight, he's a private citizen and will defend himself to the extent allowed by the law. We have a meta who may be as powerful as any at this table but sees it as no different as a gun owner. If someone threatens or attacks him, he responds in kind. We forget, sometimes, that we've only seen a very small fraction of the total population of metahumans. Many just want to live their lives and not be defined by their abilities. A lot of them likely don't have abilities that would be all that useful to heroes nor villains, so it doesn't matter. Naruto isn't that, and thanks to Lex he might get pulled into our world whether he likes it or not. The question becomes, what are we to do? And if we come down on him for killing people that attack him, are we saying metas have a diminished right of self-defense? That because of their powers they should be expected or required to hold back even when being targeted through no fault of their own? I'm not saying I don't understand the logic, I do. It is a belief I apply to myself, but it isn't one without consequence. What do you mean, Soups? Wally asked. Right now, we're just a group of people Naruto has to occasionally deal with, even though he'd prefer not to. Not friendly but not hostile. We try to enforce this, we try to shift public opinion to this idea, and he'll be an enemy. One worse than Lex ever was, I believe. He can't keep killing people with impunity, Batman growled. As far as he was concerned, Naruto Uzumaki was hiding behind the law to amass power or take out enemies. That the League seemed willing to twiddle their thumbs was beyond disbelief. If you feel that way, then why didn't you try to take him in? Clark asked. You wouldn't have tried to stop me? Bruce questioned in disbelief. We'll never know, Clark answered. For now, I suggest a wait-and-see approach. If he is up to something, I'll go after him. With that said, the meeting adjourned and the members went off on their own. When he was sure he was alone, Bruce put out a call. There was one person that could dig as deep as him, maybe deeper, without raising suspicion. He needed the question. Exes, to Harley's mind, were supposed to disappear. You break up and then they fall off the face of the planet. It frustrated her to no end that Ivy's former geek couldn't seem to manage. And sure, she held some responsibility because she told Ivy about his involvement in her rescue, but the relationship was so new she didn't want any lies between them. Ivy had been not distant but not exactly close, and instead of basking in their rightful honeymoon period, her lady was all conflicted over her old work. And the flame-haired geek just couldn't stop with the reveals. It wasn't enough he had abilities and was some kind of Deathstrokian super soldier, but he was Lex Luthor's son too? What the entire fuck? Even if only adopted, he likely needed a lot of hours on some professional's couch. There was no way there weren't years of psychological damage to unpack, but that was his problem. Harley thought they turned a corner when Ivy returned because Harley totally hit that, but romantically, 3 times. Boom, no more need to worry about Ivy's super geek. Until, that it is, they woke up to news about him getting snatched by Intergang, escaping Intergang, and Harley assumed killing members of Intergang. She just wanted to smash something with her bat and feed it to her boys, Bud and Lou. But not even that was enough, as within the hour of them waking, the geek's butler arrived with 2 carry-on-sized suitcases and a gun under his suit jacket. What kind of butler carried a Roscoe? The bastard was so polite that, of course, Ivy let him in, and he wouldn't give Harley a justifiable reason to brain him. Now they sat at Ivy's small kitchen table, instead of commencing with an encore of last night, waiting for this geezer to make his point. She had violence blue balls. And probably the other kind too, except for women. I must once again apologize for calling upon you without notice, Miss Isley and Miss Quinn. It's fine, Mr. Wintergreen, Ivy assured him. What can we do for you today? Is Naruto all right? She asked, and would swear she saw the faintest smile cross the man's stoic face. He extracted himself with minimal effort, I assure you. Yeah, he's a real Terminator, that one, Harley quipped. I'm sure Master Wade would agree, Mr. Wintergreen responded. That's not never mind. If Naruto is fine then, not to be rude, why are you here? Ivy asked, getting the discussion back into focus. Ah yes. I am sure you have concluded that Mr. Luther's taking you was to bait Naruto to act. What you may not know is that Mr. Luther had been attempting to gain his son's attention for well over a year. His ploys always failed to entice Naruto to engage him directly, and I believe he saw no other way to ensnare Master Naruto into his final scheme. To what end? Ivy asked. She hated being kidnapped, but she especially hated being made a damsel for some man's stupid game. If I were to guess, to finally make Master Naruto live up to his potential, at least from Mr. Luther's perspective. I have no doubt he weaved a tangled web, one only kept afloat by his continued existence. Now that he's gone, Master Naruto has inherited many enemies and just as many responsibilities. Mr. Wintergreen explained. I understand and I'm sorry, but I can't. Please forgive me, Miss Isley, as I have not been clear. I am not here at Master Naruto's urging nor suggestion. If he knew what I was here to do, he'd be quite displeased, but let me assure you, I am not asking you to return to his side or offer support. If anything, I am requesting the exact opposite. Harley, losing her patience, chimed in. Please get to the point, would ya? Of course, Miss Quinn. Master Naruto believes that since you are out of his life you won't be used as leverage, and while you are eminently capable of defending yourself, even you can be worn down by waves of enemies. Mr. Wintergreen placed one suitcase on the table and unzipped it, revealing it was filled with $100 bills. I am asking you to simply lay low for a while. Take a trip with Miss Quinn if you so like, just don't stay anywhere too long and don't draw attention to yourself. How do you get all that cash if Naruto isn't aware you're here? Harley questioned. Master Naruto trusts my discretion and my discernment. As such, he has granted me access to resources to attend to problems I've noticed that he has not. It allows him to keep focus and minimize surprises. Harley didn't seem to fully believe the man, as that was a great deal of trust for a butler, but she had no real way to argue it. She didn't know Naruto as anything other than Ivy's geek. She'd always dismissed him, figured he'd be out of their lives after their trip, but he felt more central now than when they were together. It was maddening. I can't agree to anything right now, Mr. Wintergreen. Of course, unfortunately, I only have the morning in Gotham. If you should decide to stay or to travel but not use Master Naruto's money, then donate it to a worthy cause. Now, I believe I have taken enough of your time. Many thanks for indulging me at this hour, Mr. Wintergreen said, and then departed, leaving Harley and Ivy alone. The two sat in silence for several minutes, either knowing how to broach the topic. While she said she couldn't, a part of Ivy wanted to help Naruto. She knew it was no longer her place, but the desire was there, and it came with a sense of guilt. She wasn't being fair to Harley. Harley, however, was much more practical about it. They talked about traveling, they now had the coin to do so, and if the geek wanted to foot the bill, who was she to argue? Her only problem was where and how long. Mykonos, Harley finally offered. Mykonos? Ivy asked, and Harley nodded like an overeager, small child. Or if that's too touristy, then some other island, but I'd like to go to Mykonos. Okay, Ivy said with a soft smile. Let's go to Mykonos. Yay! Harley exclaimed as she jumped toward her girlfriend, knocking her chair over. Curious about the noise, Bud and Lou joined, all the while Harley is excited, cheering their travel plans. Ivy smiled, thinking Greece would be the perfect place to take her mind off things, to bury any what-ifs she might have. She was in a new chapter, and she'd make even better than her last. Naruto sat in his new office, his father's old office, in deep thought. He'd had meetings with various department heads to gauge the corporate culture, and it was just as he suspected, a culture of backbiting and infighting. Departments in competition with each other, all more concerned with winning Lex's favor than putting out the best possible product. It was holding LexCorp back, and another sign of his father's obsessive need to control things. Establishing a work culture was so much easier than changing one, and he had an advantage at Izanami. A lot of the people he hired had never had corporate jobs, so he didn't have a lot of bad habits to break. The most difficult part was finding managers and executives that understood what he wanted and would carry it out. It meant he didn't hire a lot of MBAs. He sometimes wondered why the pajama people didn't target Tier 1 business schools as they churned out demons yearly. Bang. Next on the agenda was unraveling the weapons department. It had a lot of the company's talent and resources. Though the actual profit to expenses wasn't so great, it was obvious they needed to keep the division. He needed a way to entice the design teams to transition into other departments without significantly upsetting said departments. Bang. One problem was that some of them just really wanted to design weapons. Some people just liked to blow shit up. He couldn't begrudge them really, but it'd be a true loss for the firm, and he wanted to prevent a brain drain. So, some amount of turnover was inevitable, and he just had to accept it. Bang 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 bang. Naruto, Mercy said over the intercom. Ignoring it won't make it stop, please do something, she requested. Naruto sighed as he left his chair. Turning around, he said the captain slamming Parasite against his window. She was a tenacious one. Like a rabid koala with heat vision. He still can't believe he lost his virginity to a member of the sleepwear contingent. He stared at the superpowered woman, her blue eyes staring into his lavender ones. And just like that, she flew off. Because she'd gotten his attention and had therefore won. Naruto sighed again. The Boy Scout put him in a jackpot. Naruto would spend the rest of his day thinking about fixes to the corporate culture, changes to the pay structure, and other things he'd need to do to get LexCorp functioning as the kind of firm he'd want to head. For 2 days he managed not to see the captain. It was a good 2 days. His replacement at Uzunami was selected, and he was confident she'd steward the company into even greater success. Many wondered why he didn't just merge the two firms, but to Naruto, it seemed obvious. 1. It'd have necessitated layoffs of the overlapping divisions. 2. The work cultures were incompatible, at least for now, so work would slow down and any projects being worked on would stall. This meant their competition could beat them to market, or they rushed out an inferior product and lost market share anyway. Lastly, Naruto wasn't interested in amassing that level of corporate power. It was bad enough how much influence he could wield if he truly desired to do so, because of his wealth. Competition within the organization wasn't the greatest idea, but within markets, it produced results. He had the same distaste for oligarchies as he held for superheroes. They undermined the very concept of communities. They shut people out and made them feel helpless. To keep consistent with his principles, he had to see his creation put in the hands of others. It was bittersweet but made easier by him knowing the company was never solely his. It was just as much his employees, people he required to make his ideas and dreams into realities. Besides, if he could instill the changes at LexCorp he established at Uzunami, he'd do a lot of good. With that in mind, along with some other initiatives, Naruto was at First Capital, the banking institution of LexCorp. He just happened to be there at the precise moment it was getting robbed by 6 masked gunmen. It was a pretty paint-by-numbers affair. Get down on the ground, no one tried to be heroes, so on and so forth. The gang of 6 departed with several duffel bags of cash, and that was that. Well, he was interviewed by the police, something he managed to avoid even after his kidnapping. High-priced lawyers were great for avoid cops after all. But even that was over and done with quickly. Although he hadn't done what he went to the back to do, he almost chuckled at the thought. He later learned the captain caught the gunman after her very presence initiated a high-speed chase, but she caught them. He spent the rest of his day hard at work and hadn't thought of the issue further until the skirt-wearing superhero was floating over his veranda while he was trying to relax. "We need to talk," she said, and he rolled his eyes. They didn't need to talk, they didn't need to do anything together. He got up to go inside. She might be many things, but she wasn't such a brat she'd caused property damage because he ignored her. But she would fly in front of the door and block his entrance. "What do you want?" Naruto asked in a clipped tone, which the captain didn't appreciate. Her scowl made that quite obvious, as did her placing her hands on her hips. "Don't talk to me like that, Naruto." "That's what you want? Fine. I'll be nicer from here on out, now if you would," he said, hoping she'd just leave. He wasn't in the mood for this for her. "Why didn't you stop those robbers? They could have hurt someone. Matter of fact, they did when they left the bank. Running from you. They injured people attempting to get away from you. There was no need to step in at the bank, every account is insured. No one was harmed by what they were doing, just scared and inconvenienced." "Stealing is wrong," the captain stated, and Naruto laughed. "Yes, stealing was wrong. Don't laugh at me." Naruto debated about what he was going to do. He could prove a point and show her how limited her scope was, or he could jump off the veranda and go get something to eat. It was too bad the barbecue of Metropolis was mediocre, and he didn't feel like running to Central City for some. He sighed, deciding to try the former. "Would you like to come in for a minute? There is something I want to show you." She looked like she didn't fully believe him, and he rolled his eyes again. She was the unwelcome party here, she was the untrustworthy one. With a nod, she stepped away from the door, and he led her inside. She sat on his couch while he retrieved some files. A minute later he was back, having handed her a manila envelope. "Stealing is wrong, but not all stealing is illegal. First Capital, attempting to juice their profits, started increasing their fees on their customers, the overdraft fee being the highest earner. How? Instead of clearing debit charges in sequential order, they made sure the largest purchases went through first so their balance would go into the negative quicker. Then it was just a fee for every new charge. These profits aren't from actual products, they haven't created some new good. It was theft. Then you get into their mortgage practices where they systematically shifted people into crappy loans, even when these people qualified for better and safer products because the bank could bundle the shitty loans and sell them. Thousands of people lost their homes, their wealth, while no one engaged in these dishonest practices was ever held accountable. These are the kinds of thieves that get away with it, that have the connections and authority to make it seem legit. They work the regulators, write the laws that should govern them, and harm generations just to raise quarterly profits. But you don't go after them. So, if you want to know why I didn't stop a few masked idiots from hauling off with cash that would have been replaced by the end of business, it's because they were the least objectionable crooks present. Naruto's spiel sat poorly in the Kryptonian's stomach. It wasn't a new observation, but it was one that didn't offer an easy counterargument. They needed the trust of the public to do what they did. They couldn't just go after bad people. It wasn't a fair system, but they could stop or minimize a lot of direct harm. And maybe if people weren't scared of street crime, they could focus on other matters. But none of that was her chief concern at the moment. Those insights wouldn't allow themselves to be verbalized. Instead, she reacted out of spite and reached for the first thing she could. "Is that why you took up with Poison Ivy, you hypocrite?" And once again he laughed at her. "Sure. That's exactly why." The captain briefly saw red. Do not laugh at me, Naruto." "Stop being funny and I won't, Captain Honeypot." "And don't call me that name," she yelled, filled with the desire to punch Naruto through a wall or 12. "You know my name, use it." The Kryptonian saw the defiance in his eyes and knew what he was going to say before he said it. "Yes, I do know your name, but you want me to call you by your moniker. I refuse. To protect our identities and instill trust, we have to be called something. You could do so like everyone else," she explained in mounting frustration. Did he think she liked being called a girl? She was a woman, not some little kid and not Clark's sidekick. "Sure I could, but I'm a grown-ass man and I'm not calling any of you by those silly things." "Is this place secure?" "I have it swept constantly, using seals, but she doesn't need to know that." "Then just use my name, since you have to be insufferable," says the person who dropped in on me unannounced. "Now, Kara, what can I do for you?" "You can consider yourself on notice. You color inside the lines or else." Naruto snorted and changed his voice as he said, "Or what, you'll have your button men greet me with a Chicago typewriter and make sure I go down fast and hard? Well, I tell you what, Gumshoe. If you got a hand full of aces and the world's address, then we'll play it hard. Hard and square, you see." "Am I just a joke to you, Naruto?" Kara asked. "No more than any of the other pajama people. Hell, slightly less if for no other reason than my own dignity." "You are such a jerk. You act as if I tricked you, like there was some big plan to get you in my bed. You can't admit you were attracted to one of the pajama people because heaven forbid we be more than the cartoons you make us into." "No, I see you all as real people, which is why I don't understand why you enshrine yourselves in silliness. And I know the pull of the insanity, so I had to get out." "Yeah, and left me terrified you were going to reveal my secret identity," Kara rejoined, arms crossed her chest. He really took no responsibility for anything. She didn't understand how he could be so sweet right up till he found out she was a superhero. From then on, any behavior on his end was seen as justified. "So, why was Poison Ivy an exception?" Kara asked. "I think I'm owed an answer." "You aren't," Naruto assured her. "Give me one anyway. Was she prettier? Smarter? What? What made the notorious hater of superhero and villain alike so taken by one of Batman's?" "She isn't the detective's anything," Naruto interrupted. So what was it?" "Pam was an eco-terrorist with superpowers, the latter being the only reason any of you cared to involve yourselves. But if she wasn't committing acts of terrorism, she was just a normal person, and during the time we were together she didn't. You are a superhero, and will jump at every burglary alarm. Your participation is different." "That's it?" Kara asked. "As far as why I could tolerate her involvement in that nonsense, yes, but didn't like what he was sensing." "And you never told her about your abilities?" "I never told you, Boy Scout did to make us even." "But you never told her." "I did not," Naruto confirmed, really not liking what he was sensing. Kara had this contemplative look on her face, but she wasn't really considering anything, she'd already come to a conclusion. "Well, I've taken enough of your time. For today. I'll be seeing you around, Naruto." "I'd really rather you didn't. You've been a world-class jerk to me for years, you owe me. And if you remember how to be sweet to me," she shrugged, "who knows?" "I do, I know. I refuse." Yeah, but you've backslid once. Who's to say it can't happen again? And again. And again, Kara said with a chuckle, and Naruto was missing the wounded predator act. He'd much rather her want to fight him. As she walked back to the veranda, she wasn't satisfied to merely sway her hips, her skirt shifting to tease at what was hidden underneath. She also slapped her ass at each step. Oh, Naruto. Don't be so rough. She flew off, never turning around to see the effect of her actions, but laughed all the way home. Completely alone, Naruto muttered, "I'm so fucked," knowing he had one more complication to his already vexing life. And just for good measure, fucking pajama people. Ivy stared down at her drink, vodka with 3 olives, and frowned. Something about this felt off. Maybe she was paranoid. A small amount of paranoia was good for a supervillain to have, as there was no telling when Batman might drop in and ruin your things. So, she could accept she may be wrong, but something told her she wasn't. It wasn't out of the ordinary for Helena to call Harley for a hang, but it was odd for her to insist Ivy be there, new relationship or not. And then to invite Selena. It was almost as the Huntress wanted Ivy off her game. She could admit she got a little weird around Selena. And with Harley running around being the life of the part, it was just the 3 women at the table. The foursome went to the Penguin's joint, something of a neutral zone as he was semi-retired from the life. The quad chatted. Things had been pretty easy until Harley let slip that timing of the outing was fortuitous, as they'd be leaving town the next day. "So, Ivy," Selena said in that way unique to her, effortless and always at the same tone, an undercurrent of a purr. "Where are you two headed?" "Can't say, keeping everything on the hush." "Oh, is this a working trip?" Helena asked, and Ivy quirked her brow. True, she wasn't straightforward, but she still targeted villains, and Ivy, to the small-minded set, was a villain. Before she could answer, Harley flipped back into the booth, beside her, and exclaimed too loudly. "Nope. I'm taking my lady on a romantic getaway." Which, despite herself, made Ivy smile. "How long?" "Don't know, depends on how much trouble we cause," Harley said, now talking at a reasonable volume but no less excited. "But I won't get to bring my babies," she said, mood flipping in an instant. "Ivy, do you think they'll remember me?" "Of course," Ivy answered, placing an arm around the excitable blonde. "Well, if you come across anything interesting, do keep me in mind." "Gotham is getting a little claustrophobic," Selena said, staring intently at Ivy. Sure. I mean, we probably won't, but if you think we will, then maybe." "Yeah, maybe." Ivy knew she sounded like an idiot and could die from embarrassment. She finished off her drink, hoping slight intoxication could number her. She somewhat checked out for the rest of the night, but Harley was animated enough for the both of them. With an early flight scheduled, the two departed before Selena and Helena, each wishing the pair a good trip. Now alone, Selena stared intently at Helena. A knowing smile graced her lips. "Must be difficult to ingratiate yourself to someone that is leaving, no?" "I don't know what you mean," Helena replied. "Of course, darling. Of course," Selena said while never breaking eye contact. Helena started to feel so insecure as those green eyes peered at her, stripping away at her psyche defenses. "Was I that obvious?" Helena relented under the gaze of her friend. "Are you implying the only way I could figure it out is if you were?" Selena asked. Helena smiled. "Yes." "Cretin," Selena playfully hissed. "But do tell any interested parties they are going about this the wrong way." Lois walked into the once oppressive office, excited for her exclusive. The once barren walls were decorated with art. Plant life was strewn throughout the room. It made the room feel more lively, less imposing. The whiskered sheet head of LexCorp sat there expectantly, his PR show right beside him and Mercy Graves to his left. She thought it was a bit much for just one interview, and he must have agreed as he requested they vacate. "Good afternoon, Ms. Lane," he greeted. "Hello, Mr. Uzumaki," she returned in kind. "May I call you Naruto?" "I'd prefer that you did," he answered, smiling brightly. Lois smiled as well before slipping her professional mask back on. "It has been a little over a month since you've taken over LexCorp and the business world, and already your tenure has come under criticism. Some see you as the new Lex, others the anti-Lex, and still more something altogether new, but it's hard to find someone with a neutral opinion about you. Why do you think that is?" Naruto didn't answer immediately, truly thinking about the question. It was a weird question, to consider the motivations for other people's perception of you and to do so without projection. But of all the things people could use to shape their opinions, he knew what recent piece of evidence was making so many reconsider him. "My father was a man of consequence, for good and ill. I think those expecting or fearing I'll be like him are still trying to read the tea leaves. For others, they simply don't like my preferred management style. Honestly, I bet there are a ton of people who don't give two flips about me, They just don't talk to reporters. What do you say to those who fear you will be just like your father? Fear, only second to love as the most vexing of emotions. Good or bad depending on the context, it was not a feeling that could be soothed through explanation. And as much as he'd want to alleviate concerns, to tell people what they could expect, the truth was it wouldn't matter. It had no recourse but to answer nothing. If words alone could alleviate their fears, they probably didn't really fear me becoming Lex. And then you have some who won't be convinced by any amount of actions to the contrary. Not to sound glib, but I can't live my life trying to prove I'm not my father. It's not a real life, and I have things I want to accomplish, not because I want to show my father up or anything other than I believe them to be right and just. Are right and just sound business practices? If they aren't, then you have much bigger concerns. If the only way for a business to maintain or thrive is by exploiting its workers, putting profit above all else, then we're in really big trouble. However, I don't believe that to be the case. Once again, we have to see who gets to speak to reporters and which people are treated as experts. If most of the people you speak to about business are those that actually benefit from profits, they are going to shape their worldview around ascertaining profits. Then what makes you an exception? You've admitted your privileged upbringing, so shouldn't you be more concerned about profits over the welfare of your employees or your civic responsibilities? An exception? He shook his head. It was an understandable question, but it missed the point. He didn't want to be an exception. The point was to be the new normal, but he'd let his success speak for him. Instead of rejecting her premise, Naruto attempted to be diplomatic. I'm not sure how much of an exception I am, in that I don't have a board and I don't answer to stockholders. We don't know what various executives would do if they were free. I'm not saying we have a class of Eugene Debses just wanting off the leash, I just want to be fair. But assuming I am some exception, I honestly don't know why. It could be I read the right book at the right time, saw the right movie, or connected with someone I normally wouldn't have. Maybe a cute girl in a Che Guevara winked at me. Really? Lois asked credulously. Revolutionizing corporate culture because a cute girl winked at you. Helen of Troy managed to inspire a war. Is it so unfeasible to believe a similar beauty couldn't get me to pay people fairly? Well, when you put it like that, Lois said with a chuckle. But speaking of beautiful women who have inspired you, your only known relationship was with one Pamela Poison Ivy Isley. Are you two still together? We are not, no. Then are you single? If so, I'd imagine you'd be Metropolis's most eligible bachelor. Naruto chuckled dryly, but Lois could tell it was a cover. My work-life balance is tilted firmly toward work, so I don't know how eligible I am. Mr. Uzumaki, you have an appearance you scheduled. I'm sorry, but Ms. Lane's time is up, Lois and he both heard his PR shill say. Was there anything else, Ms. Lane? I don't want to cut you short, but I do hate to keep people waiting. No, I'm all done, thank you for your time, Lois said and exited the office. Down on the first floor, her longtime partner was waiting for her. You didn't have to wait, Smallville. He isn't the big, bad wolf. Clark rolled his eyes at the irony. If only she knew. I thought we could grab some lunch while you tell me about Lex Jr., he said with a smile. Even the thought of how much that'd annoy Naruto pleased him. Pfft, I don't know what the kid is, but he certainly isn't Lex 2.0. Is going to be quite the heartbreaker though, she said as Clark hailed a taxi. He held his question until they got in the yellow car. What makes you say that? He's still hung up on Poison Ivy. Makes you wonder what she's doing to inspire such devotion, and if us normal ladies can learn. Clark recalled Naruto's remark about rough play and was really hoping Lois didn't learn that. He was from Kansas, he had his limits. Back with Naruto, he knew something was wrong. His PR specialist, Megan, was too nervous for no reason. Sure, she came off mouse and sort of nondescript with her brown hair and average build, but she'd been comfortable in his presence before. The next sign was the driver, who wasn't his normal driver. Guy didn't even call attention to it, and it made Naruto think they assumed he wouldn't notice. A lot of rich pricks wouldn't. He could have gotten out of it, had near countless ways of escaping, and only a few required he snapped the neck of everyone in the black SUV. He wondered if he was getting arrogant, continually allowing people to kidnap him just to see what they wanted, but if he desired to keep a low profile, meaning appearing powerless, then he had little choice. Didn't make it any less annoying, especially as he watched Megan struggle to pull out her silenced pistol. If this is a salary negotiation, I don't know if you're going about this the worst or best possible way, but you have my attention, Naruto said, not remotely bothered by the weapon. Please just ride without incident, and you won't get hurt, Mr. Uzumaki, she said. She didn't want to be doing this, it suggested coercion. Naruto nodded. If she wasn't going to try to harm him, then he could enjoy the car ride in silence. He needed a break anyway. Leaving downtown and getting on the highway, Naruto took a closer look at his second captor, the driver. Square jaw, clean shave, hair buzzed on the side of his head but longer on top. Military, possibly former, Naruto would need more information to really know. But the guy had the eyes of someone who'd claimed to like to work up close in a gravely draw while wielding a knife larger than necessary for stabbing someone to death. Deathstroke was entirely dismissive of most military people, especially their special forces. He called them just good enough to not be good enough when facing real competition. His former sensei tended to underrate the unfairness of fighting a super soldier until he had to fight one himself. Naruto created a brief mental note to have Mr. Wintergreen arrange a visit for the two. He hadn't beat the merc down in a few years, not since the man fucked off to Nanda Parbat. Because training from Ra's fucking Al Ghul was surely going to close the distance between them. Naruto rolled his eyes at the thought of the demon's head. If there was a man whose existence was confoundingly asinine, it would be Ra's Al Ghul. It fit that the detective and he went round and round with each other, they were on the same bullshit. I run a secret organization everyone knows about. My assassins dress up like ninja from the movies. Blah. Naruto thought dismissively. He and his League of Lost Boys were amusing in how inept they were. No, seriously, one guy continually foils your plots and instead of sending every assassin you have after him, you try to honeypot him with your daughter? Even Lex used to laugh at that. Over brandy and a nice Monte Cristo that was rarely lit, he would just chuckle at the self-important old man. Please, if you have some incredibly long life, don't be like him, Lex would say through laughs. We're here, the driver announced as he stopped in front of a small bistro, Madeline's. He opened Naruto's door, making a show of revealing his pistol should Naruto try to flee. He just ignored the man and entered the eatery. The hostess, short with long jet black hair and green eyes. Green like he killed the thought and followed her to his table, where two people were already sitting. A military man general, from what Naruto could tell of his medals, and a large, black woman of average height. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Uzumaki, the woman said. I took the initiative of ordering for you. I hope you don't mind, she explained as a plate was placed before him by one server, another filling his wine glass. Steak au poivre with béarnaise, pomes puree, and grilled asparagus. Naruto had to admit, it was a good selection. He took a sip of wine, a nice, bold red. New World, probably Chilean, he guessed. So, he said as he picked up his fork and knife, it'll be 12,000 for a couple unless you want the boyfriend experience, then it's 15. I am multilingual and perform well at parties, so it'd be worth the price. The general wasn't amused, but the woman snorted. I guess we deserve that given everything, she said. This, she gestured to the military officer, is General Wade Eiling and I am Amanda Waller. We apologize for the strong-arm tactics, but we needed to meet. Vital? What could be so vital you had to plant an agent in my company and have her force me here at gunpoint? War, Eiling growled. War like we've never seen, a war we are not prepared for. Naruto took a bit of his pepper steak, cooked just shy of medium. The sauce paired well, he'd have to come back here one day. The benefit of taking his sweet time to savor his steak was the Nimrod general thought he was cowed instead of uninterested. War? He asked. Yes. Against the metahumans, against the likes of the League. You think I want to go to war with the League? I'm getting LexCorp out of weaponry. I doubt I could help you, General. Actually, Waller cut in, because you have been so vocal in wanting to stop manufacturing weapons, you could be a boon. We already started talks with Lex before his untimely passing, and it would be unexpected for you to end his weapons program and aid us. I think you agree that having an organization of unchecked superpowered beings answering to no one but themselves is bad for national security. I'm not a fan, no. Then help us. We are not out to antagonize the League. However, it would be unwise to be unprepared should they ever cross the line. We are partnering with some of the brightest minds to protect our nation. The old patriotism gambit. Naruto did agree that unchecked power, unaccountable organizations that wielded the power to harm, to kill, were threats. But this, whatever it was going to be off the books. They would be just as unaccountable but call it covert, as if the industries of war and plunder were bastions of civil responsibility. He wanted no part in this. I'll have to decline, Ms. Waller, Naruto said. Taking another drink of wine, he thanked them for the meal and left, making General Eiling irate. That no good, pampered, spoiled brat. We don't need him. As a point of fact, we do. A lot of our initial designs were Lex's, and that young man is the only one with access. Same with Lex's slush fund. How do you suggest we gain his cooperation? Eiling asked. Waller smiled. Whatever the man's detriments, he knew when to listen. Most of the time, anyway. We find his soft spots and apply pressure, Waller said with the utmost confidence. Back outside, Naruto approached the SUV with a smile. not surprised to see Mercy in the back and Mr. Wintergreen behind the wheel. After getting settled, Naruto made a finger gun and pointed it to his temple as he asked Mr. Wintergreen, "You didn't double-tap my abductors, did you, Mr. Wintergreen?" "No, sir, they are merely resting." "Good," Naruto said and then turned to Mercy. "You want to tell me what business Lex had with a 3-star and a senior policy advisor to the last 2 presidential administrations?" She was getting used to the smell of ocean air, slow days, and long nights. Not just getting used to, enjoying, embracing, looking forward to each new day. Harley hadn't been so happy ever in her life. Mykonos was everything she'd imagined and more. They stayed for 2 weeks before departing, Ivy choosing the next destination and their current location, Lisbon, Portugal. Harley thought she liked it here even more than the Greek island. The city was a mixture of old and new, the people were friendly but not intrusive, and the sedate pace had a calming effect on the otherwise hyperactive blonde. She had her lady, a ton of cash, and the world felt like it was filled with endless opportunities. Harley was pulled away from her thoughts by the ringing of her phone, the display saying it was King Shark. She answered excitedly, hoping to see her babies. "Hi, Kingy." She greeted before her face morphed into one of pure fury. "Why do you have his phone? What have you done?" "Hee hee ha ha ha, don't be like that, Harley. I just missed you is all and I want my partner back." "We were never partners, I was just someone for you to order, beat, and occasionally fuck." "I know, it was the perfect relationship, ha ha ha. But seriously, Mr. J needs you to come back. This separation, it's run its course. My mayhem isn't the same without you, baby. I would never go back to you, not in 100 years. The shark said something similar, along with refusing to tell me where you were, Joker said as he turned the phone to show Harley the room. Blood everywhere and King Shark in pieces. I asked a little too hard, but we'll get you some more henchmen, I promise. Harley willed the tears from her eyes, her body hot with fury. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to bash your fucking head in and burn your corpse. I swear I'll make you pay. You've gotten a little willful since you left. I'm not sure I like it, but it's okay, I'll get you back to working order in no time. Once you see things my way, that is. And why would I do that? Harley asked. Because if you don't, I'm going to kill your new girlfriend. And I'll take a much longer time than I did with the shark. You won't get within 10 feet of her, I promise you that, Harley said through gritted teeth and a death grip on her phone. Oh baby, she'll come to me of her own volition and then we'll have a party. Compare notes. Torture her until she's unrecognizable. You know, good, wholesome fun. You still have nothing she'd want, your threats are empty, Harley said. She wouldn't be baited into reckless action, she'd plan her revenge and make sure the bastard was dead. We'll see. You two may be out of reach, but a certain member of Metropolis High Society isn't. I wonder what Ivy will do once I pay her boy a visit. Do what you want, it won't matter. You're dead. Joker hung up and Harley knew he didn't believe she'd be able to kill him. She almost couldn't blame the sadistic clown. He'd broken her good once and believed he could do it again. He was wrong, but that was a secondary matter. Harley debated whether or not to tell Ivy of Joker's threats. She really wanted Naruto out of their lives, and while he'd attracted Joker's attention through no fault of his own, it would be great if they could just kill each other. As great as the trip had been, there were times Ivy would go somewhere in her mind. Harley suspected her girlfriend was thinking about him, how things would be different with him. She couldn't compete with a projection. In Ivy's mind she could make him as perfect as she wanted. So, a small part of the former sidekick just wanted him to be a permanent memory. The sound of water being turned off, the signal that Ivy's shower had ended, threw Harley into a fierce debate. Tell or keep silent? She didn't have long to choose and suspected her relationship hinged on her decision. Why was love so hard? It was the weekend and Naruto couldn't be more pumped to do nothing. The simple luxury of doing nothing, it was so underrated. He had 2 pots going on his stove, slow simmering the broths for his ramen, shoyu, and tonkatsu for variety. His pork roast was trussed and resting in the refrigerator, cooling for easy slicing later. Since the ramen would go for hours, he had a spread of tacos being delivered for lunch. He got his training out of the way early, so it was just movies and food. Maybe some sealing or coding if his mind needed a workout, but only if. Naruto got comfortable on his couch and pulled up his preferred streaming service on his smart TV. Without having to search, the first movie of his marathon was already a suggestion. 5 The Hard Way Part 6, Blood Reckoning. Not that anyone asked, but Naruto thought the series leapt in quality and narrative risk-taking in Part 5, so he was jazzed to see the latest iteration. However, not 5 minutes into the movie, and Naruto was hit with a wave of negative emotions. Madness was the strongest one, pure, unrelenting madness, and it was directed at him. Naruto called Mr. Wintergreen to warn of an attack and the man engaged the security protocols. Naruto was starting to grate under the guise of the powerless heir, ripe for the picking. He was tucked away, supremely secure in his penthouse while others took risks, not for his safety but his ruse. Not even the rockets fired at his windows bothered him. He'd added seals to strengthen them against high-velocity impacts, as the Flash had demonstrated their previous upward limit. He could feel the firefight, his security team a model of tactical efficiency facing off against Joker's band of lunatics. A hail of bullets ripping through the lobby, his men taking down several of theirs. He felt it when Otto was hit, catching one in the throat. He sensed the man's hopelessness, his desperation to survive. He felt his sadness and regrets, and Naruto assumed it was of leaving his family. Otto was on his second marriage, 3 kids between the two. The eldest, a girl, had gotten accepted to National University. She'd never know what a tuition bill looked like, Naruto resolved. A second of his men, Robert, got caught in an explosion. He went quickly, no time to even consider his end. A newer addition, and one of the younger members of the detail being only 27. His partner, an accountant if Naruto recalled properly, and he was saving up for an elaborate ceremony. He'd have to do something for him, for all of them. He hadn't realized he'd gotten up nor walked over to the windows that had endured the volley of rockets. The attack ceased, not because either side relented but due to the arrival of the Boy Scout and the captain. His phone was ringing, probably Mr. Wintergreen to provide him an update, but Naruto didn't care to talk to anyone. 2 people, 2 lives he was responsible for were taken for some reason he couldn't fathom. He'd never had dealings with Joker. Lex detested the clown, so he doubted that was it. Not that it mattered, the why stopped being important the moment Otto was shot. The clown and all that followed him would die screaming, cut by winds sharp enough to flay skin and muscle from bone, fires that turned all to ash before them, or some altogether different method. It didn't matter. None of it mattered, just that the clown would die, violently. The whoosh of the wind alerted him he was outside, on his veranda. He hadn't remembered doing that. It didn't matter, he had to keep focused. Dead clown was priority 1. Naruto? He heard some distant voice call out, but he was beyond the reach of voices unless they were telling him how to get to the clown. The arrogant clown that thought his insanity offered a cloak of invincibility. He'd learned his place, the pig. Pigs in people suits, walking around thinking the world was theirs to do as they wished, that they were acts of nature to be endured as they spread misery and hopelessness. They were pigs and pigs were slaughtered. The pig clown would learn soon enough. Eiling and Waller might need a lesson in humility as well. All these people doing things they shouldn't, involving themselves in his affairs like he was incapable of doling out consequences. Like this whole goddamn city couldn't go up in dust if he deemed it so. Pigs. Pigs playing their pig games like they were masters of the universe. Maybe he needed to make a few examples so the schemers and the pajama people would leave him be. Naruto, he heard again and felt 2 strong hands on his shoulders. You have to calm down, he heard Clark say. He was calm. What was he talking about? He sent the hero a questioning look and the man pointed behind him. Naruto turned to see shattered glass everywhere. That didn't make sense, the rockets didn't even crack the glass. What could have shattered it? He, finally, noticed Kara was there too, and she had a cut on her hand. He walked over to her, palm green, not noticing her flinch at his initial touch, but relaxing when her hand started to heal. It was hard to believe Joker possessed something that could draw blood from them. He'd make sure to get the location of all such items out of the man before he ended him. He could be a jerk to them, but they were good people, all told, and didn't want any harm to come to them just because he disagreed with their life choices. He knew what he needed to do, what was still confused by events. How'd he get outside? What shattered his glass? What hurt Kara? You lost control, little sage, a deep voice rumbled from within. Kurama? Ivy turned the water off, instantly missing the warmth and pressure. She stepped out of the walk-in shower, towel at the ready. As she dried off, she considered what she'd like to do for the day. Staying in bed sounded nice, but exploring more of the city wouldn't be awful. She might have to entice Harley to split the difference. The plant manipulator smirked. She was never one to doubt her powers of persuasion, and there was no sense in waiting. Wrapping a towel around her, cinching it to hug her curves, she walked to the living room, to see Harley red-eyed and fighting back tears. What happened? Ivy asked. What could have possibly happened in the span of her shower? Joker, the fucking bastard. He tortured and killed Kingy because he didn't reveal where I was. The sick fuck says he wants me back. He even threatened you, Harley explained. Ivy felt terrible for the loss of King Shark. He was much too kind for the villain's life. We can take our time and plan how best to pay him back. I doubt he could find us. He isn't that resourceful outside the States. Ivy watched Harley nod, but she could tell there was something else, a burden causing her to sink into herself. Ivy, gently, took Harley's cheeks into her hands and met her eyes. What else? Whatever it is, it'll be okay. He threatened to target Naruto to draw you out, and I was so mad I told him to do what he wanted. I'd kill him no matter what. While the wording wasn't ideal, Joker wasn't awaiting your permission. Don't worry, I'll take of it. Ivy kissed Harley on her forehead and then headed toward her travel bag, retrieving a cell phone with high-level encryption for secure calls. It was in one of the suitcases Mr. Wintergreen gave them with 2 numbers programmed into it, his and one other. She called the second number, hoping the respondent would pick up. Who and where? The voice asked. Joker and Metropolis. You've got your facts wrong, sweetie. He stays away from Big Blue. He's targeting Naruto. What did you do to put Naruto in his crosshairs, Stringbean? The voice said with an edge, and Ivy could sense this was going to devolve quickly. Ivy sighed in annoyance, still with the annoying nickname? We don't have time for this. Can you do the job or not? Oh, I'm going to do the job, and if I find out this has anything to do with you and your new bedmate, we're going to have a chat. You seem to forget I've never been afraid of you and can keep up a conversation as well as anyone, Ivy said, tiring of this discussion. I look forward to it then. Don't worry about contacting Mr. Wintergreen, I've got it all from here. Luckily, I'm in the area. The voice hung up and Ivy was glad to be done. She returned to the living room to console Harley, trusting Naruto would be okay. Speeding to the sounds of gunfire and explosions, Clark hoped he could make it in time before catastrophe struck. He wasn't alone, so if that was good, Kara could handle anything Joker could do, but Clark had to be honest, the clown wasn't who he was most worried about, and if the worst-case scenario came to be, could he let Kara fight by his side? He let the question hang in his mind as he scanned the scene. Joker and Rocketeer on the roof, gunmen in the lobby. I get the former, you the latter, Clark said, and Kara sped off in compliance. It was a short encounter. He'd visioned the rocket launcher, knock both men out, and deliver them to the police to transport. It was the same for Kara. Clark had hope they prevented something truly terrible from happening. Hopes dashed by a few simple words. 2 fatalities, Kara said. Any senseless loss of life was tragic, and Clark hadn't allowed himself to become numb, to be relativistic about death, but that was another problem for another day. He knew Naruto took the welfare of his employees, his people, more seriously than some people did with their families. Only 2 fatalities, only one wouldn't matter. Clark took off in due haste. He had to get to Naruto first. If there was going to be a fight, then he could take it. He knew Kara was right on his tail. He wished he had time to stop her, to tell her to stay back, but the tingling on the back of his neck, the sense of impending danger, gripped him. When he arrived outside Naruto's penthouse, he saw not a young man but the avatar for death and vengeance. His normal red spikes floating like 9 angry tails. His eyes completely white, and his fist clenched so tight the pressure could have potentially formed diamonds from coal. What's wrong with Naruto? She asked. The sound of glass being torn asunder by razor-sharp winds was her answer. Naruto stood at the center of a vortex of cutting winds, the deadly currents moving as he did. We have to stop him before he goes for Joker, but we must be careful, Clark said. He approached the force of nature, slowly, and called out to him. The slightest incline of his head informed Clark that Naruto was still there, deep down. They just needed to take it slow, but Kara had other plans as she rushed toward the eye of the localized storm. Ah! She screamed when one of the gusts of wind cut her deeply, drawing blood. She looked shocked, and while he'd informed her of Naruto's ability to negate their invulnerability, he could forgive her for not truly understanding what that meant. He'd admonish her later, but her impetuousness did bring change. Subconsciously reacting to her pained yell, the display of power stopped. No winding down to a slow crawl, but a complete end. Clark put his hands on the younger man's shoulders, trying to bring him out of his state. It worked. His hair returned to its normal state, and the color returned to his irises. Naruto returned, but Clark could tell he was confused, as if the last several minutes didn't happen. He wasn't the picture of blind fury, but he seemed hollow, like the world wasn't fully real to him. The Uzumaki still had enough awareness to heal Kara, something Clark didn't know he could do that, and the two entered his penthouse hoping he wouldn't go after Joker with both of them there. The information on Joker's movements had come too late for Bruce to stop his assault, even alerting Clark and Kara hadn't prevented any fatalities. It was a failure, he'd been too slow, and Joker claimed more lives because of it. He was getting tired of their never-ending cycle, of the trail of horrors Joker would leave. He hated the sound of the man's voice, the sight of him. Everything about Joker was detestable, and Bruce sometimes wished he could make an exception. Just one time, break his rule and kill a villain so he can't harm anyone else. But he knew if he ever crossed it once, he'd cross it repeatedly. Instead, he shadowed the police wagon just in case Joker had an escape planned. As he watched from the rooftops, things appeared to be going smoothly, but he couldn't shake a nagging suspicion something would go wrong. Using his binoculars, he scouted ahead. The traffic lights did seem out of sync, cars were starting to back up, slowing the convoy down. Concerning but inconclusive. There were readily accessible on-ramps, no entry points to the subway system. Just city streets. Traffic could impede a chase, but Superman wouldn't be bothered by it. Bruce knew he was missing something. The predicted traffic jam soon occurred, and he was alert for any oncoming vehicles or pedestrians looking to interfere. But he saw nothing. Heard no signs of a large vehicle meant to plow through other cars. Nothing. But his instincts were screaming at him to stay vigilant, to notice what he missed. What? What? It took the sound of a high-velocity rifle firing. The sound echoing against the skyscrapers was the final piece of the puzzle. He shouldn't have been preparing for an escape attempt. From his vantage point, he could see blood dripping down the side of the police wagon in the location Joker had been sitting. It gave Bruce a rough trajectory, and he was off. He raced through the sky trying to find the origin of the shot, and therefore the location of the shooter before anyone could get escape. Whatever his crimes, Joker was to be judged by the system. His murderer would not get a free pass, not if he had anything to say about it. As he neared where he estimated the shot came from, Bruce saw a building under construction. Taking a chance, he entered through an empty window, landing in a three-point stance, batarang drawn. Not 2 windows down, Bruce saw an abandoned rifle. 50 caliber, expensive model. One the average hitman wouldn't want to leave behind, but a well-financed professional might chalk up to the price of doing business. Maybe, Bruce considered, the Uzumaki was lying in wait for the Joker, but Superman and Supergirl interfered before he could have him killed. Maybe the shooter was a backup plan. The time it had taken Bruce to get to the building left the assailant with ample opportunity to escape. He tried to get some forensic information off the rifle but wasn't confident. They needed to question the Uzumaki, but Superman was so protective of the younger male, something Bruce neither appreciated nor liked. He needed answers, and he was done waiting, done letting this murderer walk around free. Bruce put a call into the League, requesting the assistance of every member, and making a point of asking Wonder Woman to bring her lasso. He'd get the truth tonight, and no one would stop him. Kurama hadn't pulled Naruto into the mindscape. He only trusted these people so much with Naruto's welfare. The super aliens were fine, to a point, but not so acceptable he'd leave Naruto open to attack. He suspected something like this was coming. His charge was not taking care of himself, but wouldn't have amended his behavior until he suffered the consequences. Why did I disassociate? I've lost people before. Not on top of a breakup, killing your parent, increased scrutiny and added work pressures. But I've dealt with that. I know how I feel about them. I didn't hide from it. You also didn't process your emotions, little sage. You identified them and acted as if that were sufficient. It was not, and your intellectualization left you unbalanced. What has the old man said to you 1,000 times? Nishu is not ninjutsu, my chakra is not a weapon to be controlled but a manifestation of me, we are one. As I go, it goes, Naruto repeated robotically. And you went right off an emotional cliff. See what happens when you don't deal with your issues? Kurama taunted. Yeah. Except, I wasn't doing it intentionally. I really don't have time to be off my game, Naruto lamented. Then do the work. And stop using your abilities as an excuse to avoid things, Kurama counseled. Sensing Naruto was about to ask a stupid question, Kurama continued. Why didn't you ever tell your woman about your abilities or me? You know why. If I could have explained your existence without the rest I would have, but it would have just caused problems. So, you kept a part of yourself hidden to avoid conflict? What kind of relationship is that? A happy one. Until it wasn't. Okay, I'll make a deal with you. My next girlfriend, I'll lay it all out. Hey, I'm akin to a demigod from another dimension. I was supposed to be the savior of my people, but my ancestral daddy, having watched various iterations of his transmigrated son fail at that task, sent me away before I ever got the chance. I fell into the lap of my ruthless, corporate mogul, gangsta daddy who seemed to only love 2 things, me and fucking over Superman. Past events have raised questions as to which were 1 and 2 on that list. My ancestral daddy has trained me in secret since I was 4. Trained with the world's best mercenary before most kids walked themselves to school. Liberated Markovia when I was 11. Met and trained with my bio parents when I was 13. I look a lot like my mom, so on top of everything else, I'm a pretty boy. Yep, pretty boy wunderkind. What else? Let's see, I can create something from nothing. Turn water into ice, earth into lava, and sprout some fucking trees if I'm bored. I'm an empath, my range is insane. My best friend is a chakra beast sealed inside of me who acts as my guardian and can increase my already ridiculous power by a number it isn't worth considering. Oh, and I can simultaneously blow up 200 of the largest population centers on the planet, and no pajama person could prevent me from getting 98% of them. And I hate Kale. Oh, and the only two women I've ever been with are a superhero and villain respectively. What do you think, Kurama? Third date material, or should I just dive right in the first night? I don't like you refusing to tell people I could destroy the planet myself. I can, that's my power and I deserve to have it acknowledged. I refuse to laugh at that. You just can't give Kurama his props. But that'll be for our next session. Right now, you need to stop avoiding things. If Pamela Isley reacted poorly or eventually accepted, she deserved the chance, and so did you. I know how it would have gone. You suspect, and not without good reason. It isn't a justification to not even try. Unless you're scared. Maybe I am? Get over it. I'm not here to support a coward. Now eat your lunch before the aliens take it all. Kurama ordered. Naruto blinked slowly as if emerging from a trance and realized he was at his table. Boy Scout and Captain were there too, helping themselves to his tacos. Mr. Wintergreen was dutifully stirring his pots, so at least they hadn't boiled over. Did you save me some alpastor or did you inhale it? Naruto asked the Kryptonians. I saved you some, sir, don't worry, Mr. Wintergreen informed him. Don't be greedy, Naruto. There's like $100 worth of tacos here, the captain scolded, and Naruto rolled his eyes. I'm not half plant, the sun doesn't feed me, Naruto said and swiftly looked down at his plate. He didn't want to see the captain's reaction or he'd break. We're not, do you think? What do you think we are? Kara demanded. They did not go through photosynthesis. I think you're gullible, Naruto said as he chuckled. The Boy Scout laughed too, but the coward was hiding it. I see how it is. The next time you need saving up in your tower like some storybook princess, I won't come, the captain said in a huff. Good, more tacos for me, Naruto said, but felt her getting irritated, so he decided to throw her a bone. Thank you, both of you. I appreciate you being here. Naruto felt his phone vibrate, alerting him that it was beside him on the table. I must really be out of it, he said as he looked at the alert. The message was encrypted, one no one could see as it required his biometrics and a burst of chakra. Getting that to work on his phone was as tedious as it was impressive. Looking at his message, he denied his urge to face spam. Hey, Tomato, don't say I ain't never done something for ya. Naruto went to his preferred social media platform and it was right there trending, Joker killed in transit to a Metropolis police station. He didn't care that he wasn't the one to end Joker. That was vanity. If the job was done, then he had no more investment in it. And if Rose felt comfortable enough to send him a text, secure though it may be, it meant she was safe and headed out of town, if not outside the city limits already. It still left the matter of why Joker came after him. His phone vibrated again. Call me when you can. It's important. That was from Pam. Naruto doubted her request. He calls her wasn't connected to today's events. It did him no good to stress over the how or to speculate. When his guests departed, he would get his answers. Fortunately, they were called away shortly after. Naruto erected a barrier where his windows once were, ensuring privacy until the repairs could take place. Rose? Naruto asked Mr. Wintergreen. Like it or not, sir, but she is very good at what she does and time was of the essence, Mr. Wintergreen said, sitting at the opposite end of the table. If you knew Joker was coming, why not tell me? Master Naruto, if you wish to hide your abilities, then you cannot continue to put yourself in danger. If I had informed you, that's exactly what you would have done. Otto and Robert would still be alive, Naruto argued. Yes, sir, that is likely true. But both of those men took a job and I was thorough in explaining the risk. Whether you have them because you need them or want them, they knew of the danger and stayed. Fine, Naruto said, though he was unconvinced. Just don't get in the habit of withholding crucial information from me, not even for my own good. Very well, sir. If you may, I have tasks that require my attention. Naruto nodded and Wintergreen vacated, leaving the sole Uzumaki free to call Pam. He knew it was serious when she picked up on the first ring. Hey, she said, but something in her voice sounded wrong. So, a clown, a Boy Scout, and a one-eyed assassin walk into a bar. When Clark arrived at the location specified by Bruce, he expected the other League members to be in attendance, not just John. He couldn't shake the feeling he'd been lured into a trap, that Bruce was about to do something monumentally stupid, and it was a mistake that could just be walked back. He landed softly in front of his fellow alien and greeted him. "Hello, John? Where are the others?" "They have gone to detain Naruto," John explained calmly. He wasn't entirely sold on the idea, but somehow the young man was shielded from his telepathy. If he were like Lex, or worse, they needed to stop him. The murders had to end. "For what?" "He hasn't done anything. Joker is dead, killed in the police transport vehicle by a sniper. Baiting an attack and countering with lethal force. Doesn't that sound like his MO?" John questioned. "Naruto wouldn't put his people at risk, only himself. I was with him after Joker was arrested, Supergirl too. He couldn't have done this." "If he's innocent, he has nothing to fear," John responded, but was taken aback by Clark's response. "Disgust." He looked disgusted. The Kryptonian shook his head in disbelief. He'd always known they skirted the line, but he believed, among other things, they were there to meet challenges normal people could not. If Naruto needed to be questioned, there were authorities for that. He was hiding nor on the run. Naruto won't cooperate, and honestly, he shouldn't. If the police suspect foul play, then let them question him. This isn't why we were created. "I, too, have misgivings about this course," the Martian confessed. Using Diana's lasso was dubious, but no more than his telepathy. He steeled himself. The acts were borderline true. However, the Uzumaki had demonstrated a facility with lethal violence, and it had to end. But is it right to allow him to act with impunity because his methods are covert? How many more will die if we do nothing? "That's empty speculation," Superman argued back. "They could go in circles without ever agreeing. They could frustrate each other and fight. Clark didn't want that. If they could only settle disputes via force, even amongst themselves, then Clark wasn't sure if what they were doing was worthwhile." "John, search my mind. You'll see why I know this is a mistake, and I believe once you do you'll help me." The Martian agreed and began scanning the Kryptonian's mind. The 5 remaining Justice Leaguers landed on the rooftop of Naruto's building, their target already awaiting their arrival. He seemed relaxed. Bruce wondered if he had a plan, if they'd walked into some sort of elaborate trap. He'd remain diligent, but they had to press onward regardless of the risks. "We're here," Diana started, being interrupted by the Uzumaki's calm tone. "Don't care, I refuse. Whatever you are here to do, I refuse." "We aren't here to fight," Wally explained. "Just answer some questions and we'll be on our way, no biggie." "You have no authority to ask me questions and are trespassing on private property. My private property, and not for the first time. I feel threatened by your presence, so must warn you, if you attack me I will defend myself with the confines of the law." "Is that how you do it? Put yourself in jeopardy, then kill anyone that could contradict the story?" John asked as he began to levitate. Naruto rolled his eyes. "Yes, he made them show up here and surround him. He didn't answer Space Cop's question, it was too stupid to devote effort to." Naruto could feel their agitation, anticipation. The fool was unsure, but the rest were resolute. The detective was also certain, convinced he was right and would be proven so. Their emotions gave away so much. Their entire strategy centered on the princess's lasso. He didn't know if the lasso could affect him, but he had no intention to find out. For the time being, he was content with waiting. If they didn't attack him, he had no reason to meet nonviolence with violence. Besides, that's what they expected. For him to lash out, to prove them right before they'd ever asked a question. He wasn't a villain, and he refused to be treated like one. If they wanted to stand up here all day, then he would. Mr. Wintergreen was attending to his ramen, and the day was pleasant enough all told. He had time to waste and could look at the fluffy clouds. Bats?" the fool asked. The detective acknowledged the question. He wasn't going to get the reaction he'd expected, so they'd have to initiate. Naruto felt his resolve before he ever spoke. And he barely got the first letter out before Naruto's knuckles impacted upon his chin, knocking Gotham's hero out. Naruto grabbed the utility belt around his waist and tossed it away while using his other hand to strangle the man, dangling him off the roof. "No one move. Space Cop, Princess, Macy, throw all your weapons over to me or I'll break his neck and toss the body. Fool, if you even twitch the detective dies." Naruto added some pressure to his squeeze to demonstrate he wasn't bluffing. An nth metal mace, a sword and shield, and lasso were tossed. The Space Cop was slowest to comply but did. As soon as the ring was off tossed, Naruto pulled the princess's sword to him and stabbed the detective. Throwing his body away without a second look, his next target was the man desperately summoning his ring back to him. Naruto was just faster, cleaving the Space Cop's outstretched hand and then impaling him just like he had the detective. He could feel their anger, hatred, and mortification at his actions. Didn't he warn them? Hadn't he been clear what would happen if they attacked? They were awash in emotions but ready. Macy had retrieved her weapon, the fool had lightning traveling over his body, and the princess had taken up her fighting stance. All charged in righteous fury, improbably meeting the killer at the same exact time only to be back to where they were. All were confused as they hadn't moved an inch. All were alive and unharmed. "Think I found a flaw in your plan, boss," Naruto said while staring at the clouds, but all knew he was speaking to Bruce. "You can be made a hostage whenever I deem it necessary. You're weakening the team." "You can create illusions?" the detective asked. "Who's to say you could actually do it?" He frowned when their target shook his head. "They saw you die, boss. You can say it was fake, but they felt it. Even now, they are processing grief. Their bodies are telling them they are in mourning. Combat effectiveness has dropped. If you continue anyway, that's a stunning disregard for the welfare of your team." Ian Release might be the most powerful ability in his arsenal for its ability to strip away at the will, the confidence, or even the sense of reality of those targeted. Old Man Sage said the ninjutsu variant, genjutsu, was limited in its use and effectiveness. Except for the most gifted, it relied on the target having a chakra network. He worked hard to overcome that limitation, and it routinely bore fruit. "We all know what we signed up for and the risks involved," the detective said, and witnessed the face of cold fury replace what was once feigned indifference. "I was going to, at most, slap you around a little bit. I have almost no respect for any of you, but you aren't bad people. However, your callous disregard for your team is appalling." "Goodbye, detective," Naruto said as his palm crackled with lightning. The fool tried to reach him, but he wasn't quite fast enough. Smoke billowing off his rapidly cool corpse, the bat was no more. Until they all found themselves in the exact same spots, as if reset once more. "No one should be so cavalier with the safety of their teammates, but the weak link really shouldn't be," Naruto lectured. He smiled as he sensed their trepidation. They weren't sure what was real anymore or if any of their actions made the least bit of difference. By trying to be heroic, they'd sacrificed the initiative and were reacting instead of enforcing their will. Maybe that was fine when heroes fought villains, but he wasn't a villain. He didn't have some need for attention or some intricate scheme to foil. There were no ticking clocks, no games to win, no inatters with self-destruct buttons. That wasn't him. He'd seen war and its consequences. He kills his enemy and moves on. But these people, they weren't his enemies, not yet. The potential was there, but it was just potential, a possibility. One of many, and he considered himself a man of possibilities. The 5 League members stood around, hoping to reason their way out of the dilemma. To Naruto, it was obvious, retreat, but he doubted they would flee. Pride wouldn't allow them to be backed down by someone who didn't throw a single punch. They went a few more rounds, ineptly trying to brute force their way out, but were trapped. They could break the illusion with a sudden bout of intense pain or blocking the senses being affected, but he wasn't going to share that. When they were released, the gang of 5 was surprised to see Clark and John sitting on the side of the roof with Naruto, each happily munching on tacos. John, emotionally drained, couldn't countenance seeing the trio just snacking away while the 5 of them had gone through hell. Spitefully, he blasted the tray of tacos between the triad. Wally snorted, agreeing with the petty act. "That was so uncool, Pajama Narc," Naruto said, but the voice came from behind as the noshing trio disappeared. Naruto chuckled when his victims turned to him, pure hatred in their eyes, but were cowed by Clark's cold tone. "I think we need to talk." Back at the watchtower, Clark looked at his team, at his friends, and was awash in conflicting emotions. He was angry that they'd lured him to John, assuming the two may have to fight. He was disappointed that they resorted to such deception, double so knowing Bruce was its architect. He'd been worried when he thought they were going to attack Naruto, and in a mild panic after seeing them standing on a rooftop, helpless and unaware. If an enemy had trapped them in such a way, they would be dead. And thinking back to his departing exchange with Naruto, he was growing increasingly worried they'll make the Uzumaki exactly that. "Naruto, this was a mistake and I will get it sorted," Clark said, just short of thanking him. He didn't want to suggest Naruto had done something noble and not murdering heroes. Naruto waved off his sentiments as he continued to look at the clouds. "Our unspoken agreement still stands. Leave me to my work and I will do the same. The League is your business, I extend the agreement to them. But if they refuse to leave me to my work, I foresee conflict. For a variety of reasons, I'd prefer to avoid it, but I will not run from its inevitability either." "You'd make it a lot easier to maintain this once unspoken agreement if there was no more killing," Clark suggested. Naruto snorted. "On the entirety of the planet? Nationally? Or just on any piece of land I inhabit at that moment? I didn't kill Joker. The idea I could scramble a sniper that fast or that I keep track of police transit routes is beyond absurd. Only you pajama weirdos have the time and inclination for shit like that." "You should be a hero," Clark said. Naruto looked at the Kryptonian as if he'd grown another head and lost a brain simultaneously. Have you not heard a single word I've said? Oh, I have. I've also seen reports in various locations about a blur stepping in to help people in immediate danger. These reports coincided with the places you lived previously. How long have you been sitting on that little reveal? Naruto asked. Clark shrugged shamelessly. Figured I'd get a few free meals out of you first. He saw the barest hint of a smile form on the Uzumaki's face before the forced neutrality returned. Just because I won't strut around in sexy lingerie and engage in foxy boxing doesn't mean I'll let people get hurt. I was in the right place at the right time. What could be more definitionally heroic than being in the right place at the right time and acting because no one else would or could? Seeing to the conditions that necessitated the action. Healing broken communities so the heroic becomes the everyday. Making people believe they can have a positive impact on their lives, on their surroundings. You don't need super strength or invulnerability for that. Just consider it, the choice isn't dichotomous, Clark offered. Besides, the idea that you could be so powerful but not use them to pursue your interests isn't something easily believed. So if I pledge fealty to the way of the pajama, the detective might end his burgeoning crusade against me? No dice. But you should remind the detective of Captain Ahab, Naruto said. Clark looked puzzled, so Naruto clarified. It wasn't Ahab's relentless pursuit that ruined him, it was that he relentlessly pursued that which could relentlessly pursue him in return. Is that a threat? Clark asked. Naruto smiled. Maybe I just want him to remember he has both of his legs and I'm not a fucking whale. Soups, he heard Wally call out, and Clark broke from his internal deliberations, once again at that same table holding another meeting instead of being of service. As he looked around the table, to his friends he gathered himself. He didn't want to start a fight, didn't even want to chastise them, but something had to change. I sit here and I wonder what we accomplished today. John and I could have irrevocably damaged our relationship if we'd come to blows. You all could have been killed if Naruto wanted to do so. What did we accomplish? Several members looked down in shame as the easy answer was nothing, they'd accomplished nothing. But on a deeper level, they now had doubts. Doubts that could stop the newest Luthor should he ever attack them or they attempt to stop him. Their trust in Batman was cracked, his willingness to sacrifice them felt callous. The Uzumaki managed to drive a series of wedges between them and hadn't lifted a finger. He cannot continue to get away with murder, Bruce said, his resolve not shaken in the slightest. He had nothing to do with Joker. If you'd been willing to listen to me, I could have told you that. He was actively disassociating when I found him and in no place to be ordering an assassination, nor did he have the time to arrange one, Clark explained. What happened to leave him in such a state? Shara asked. From her understanding, he was safely removed from the violence, so should have been unaffected by it. Bruce had a similar question, his mind piecing together information from the day at impressive speeds. He's an empath, Bruce concluded. At the end of the first illusion, he knew what they were feeling. It wasn't speculation or a guess, he knew. And 2 of his security detail were killed. He held himself responsible, Clark said as he nodded in affirmation. There's a reason that most of what we do is revolved around catching people in the act and emergencies. There's no doubt about guilt, and we don't risk the public's goodwill. If you keep going after Naruto, that may change. Why are you so insistent on protecting him? Bruce asked. Clark almost laughed at the question. If anyone demonstrated they didn't require protection, it was Naruto. Clark was glad he didn't have access to those illusions some years ago, or their fight would have gone a bit differently. The hero of Metropolis decided to put his cards on the table. I want him to join us. There were a lot of reactions to the simple statement, but they could be boiled down to questioning his sanity. Soups, you can't be serious. He's homicidal, literally. And I still remember what my throat nearly being crushed feels like. Not good, if you're wondering. He has no respect for us, for what we do, Diana added. There's too much Lex in him, Bruce put forth for good measure. You all witnessed me nearly beat Darkseid to death. Am I homicidal? Clark asked. He thinks you are all good people, it's the reason he didn't harm any of you. Clark turned to Bruce. You're just as devious as Lex, you just use it for good. The same could be for Naruto. Why? Why do you want him to join us and why now? Shara questioned. Several reasons. First, I believe his commitment to doing good, to justice, is sincere. Something happened, something that left him disillusioned with his powers, and I think his falling out with Lex was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was fine for a time, but events may force him to reveal more of himself. Lex's final plot? Bruce asked, understanding Clark's insinuation. Clark nodded. Naruto's potential might be the only thing we've ever agreed on. He won't become Lex. I don't see that as a possibility even remotely. However, if he rejects our way, I am fearful that his third way will leave him our enemy, not because he wants it but by necessity. Another reason, and today proved this, we need a voice willing to rein us in. We have to be disciplined in how we engage. Today we overstepped our bounds. Luckily, no one was hurt and no one knows, but we have no clue how many times we get to do that before the public turns on us. We are not a replacement for the police but a supplement, and today we forgot that. Looks of shame returned to several of the members, they internally acknowledging Clark's point. They were meant to be better and had to do better. Lastly, and this is purely selfish, none of us should plan to do this forever. I foresee a day I'll want to hang up my cape, confident I've left the protection of the world in capable hands, and I believe Naruto to be that person. Clark's words were met with stunned silence. As Naruto looked around the collection of very important people he was in proximity to, he missed being an anonymous coder geek. Best thing about the tech industries was that if you committed a social faux pas, no one cared because they assumed everyone was socially deficient. He wasn't. He didn't mind interacting with people, but political figures, dignitaries, and the hyper-wealthy seemed to have difficulties letting the conversation be anything other than a game of wit or jockeying for advantage. The vexing thing was, given how unnatural it was to talk to people this way, it likely didn't occur organically. One generation probably saw some movie or read some book that made this shit look cool and life imitated art. Now, instead of communicating to share ideas and build connections, it was just to demonstrate how crafty and clever you were. If that's all they wanted, couldn't they do something or make something? Like have a tangible impact on the world? No, let's play word games with friends. They got apps for that, and he certainly didn't have to fly to Paris to take part. He had 3 people to blame for this: Mary, Mr. Wintergreen, and Rose. Mercy had been on his neck to hire a new PR person, saying he needed to raise his public profile but in a curated way. She hounded him so much about it he gave her permission to hire who she wanted, as he really didn't care. She also insisted he come to this party to start networking with European business and political leaders. He was going to say no, but Mercy had an ally in Mr. Wintergreen. The unassuming man had taken to criticizing Naruto's schedule of train, work, and sleep. "You must get up more, sir," he would say with that knowing tone that made Naruto feel like a little kid. On and on and on until Naruto relented. He didn't see the big deal, as if he were at LexCorp or the penthouse he was staying out of trouble. No trouble meant no pajama people in his face or judging him for being less than morally upright. Then there was Rose, his surrogate sister. He knew she'd assigned herself the role after she'd lost her 2 brothers, but Naruto didn't mind. They did grow up together, sort of, and she was supportive. Sometimes maybe too supportive. Well, after about a year of intermittent contact, she'd taken to texting him every day asking why she never saw him in celebrity gossip, why he wasn't seen with this or that starlet. On and on and on. Her advocacy for him having a string of casual hookups was appreciated but just wasn't in the cards. 1. He was busy, and even no strings, one-night stands took time to cultivate. 2. Even if he could just walk into a bar and a desirable woman materialized on his arm via magic, he was an empath. He could block his empathetic abilities relatively easy now, but that was during the normal course of the day. Sex, even with someone you didn't know well, carried an expectation of vulnerability and openness, and in that state repression of his empathic abilities was near impossible. If anything, they were heightened and produced a momentary bond more powerful than some people had with partners they'd been with for years. And he just didn't want to forge that deep of a connection with someone he didn't plan to see again. Taking a sip of the cold, clear liquid, Naruto savored the sensation. There was no real taste to speak of, but the chill was pleasing. He scanned the room once more, a habit forced on him by Slade and one he never put forth the effort to break. He'd expected to see more of the same, high society types and their mindas roaming about aimlessly. He hadn't expected to see the princess of the Amazons approaching him in a black, form-fitting gown. As she elegantly strode toward him with all the grace befitting her title, her voice was soft and firm. "Care to dance?" No. No, he didn't care to dance unless the dance was won to the death, and he'd even cut back on those. But it would be rude to turn her down. He had no real reason to do so. "Of course," he replied with an easy smile and took her hand as they moved to the dance floor. One hand lightly, respectfully on her hip and the other enclosing her own, Naruto failed to squash the sense of familiarity. His body's muscle memory seeking to betray him as he flowed through the steps, from the outside seemingly lost to the rhythm. But he was anything but. For just as much as it felt routine, there was a wrongness. "You seem like a natural at this," Diana complimented, and he favored her with a smile. "I have years at boarding schools to thank. A gentleman of high society must know how to dance formally, you see," Naruto said, and while not a lie, it wasn't the whole truth. Dancing was something they did. Finding reasons, inventing reasons to engage. Their first dance, he remembered vividly. How she swayed along with the music, the smell of her perfume, and how she felt in his arms. At the moment when something was happening but neither had admitted yet, still promoting the fiction of professor and student. Denial or reticence, he didn't know on either of their parts, but the pattern couldn't hold. One dance was all it took, the gala drifting away until it was just the two of them. That night was the start, the first dance of many, until one day the dancing stopped. A gulf appeared between them, and nothing could be done. But that didn't stop the memories. So, not that I'm not flattered, but why did you ask me to dance? Naruto asked. He didn't expect a real answer, the distraction would be welcomed. Diana stared deeply into his eyes so there could be no mistake that she meant what she said. Someone very important to me thinks very highly of you, and I want to understand why. If this person is who I think he is, just know I've tried to dissuade him toward those expectations, Naruto cracked. Then you've failed, she said as if it were an inarguable fact. But maybe that's a good thing, expectations aren't to be run from but met or exceeded. Following the expectations of others is a good way to lose yourself, Naruto countered. Or find yourself, Diana pressed. Naruto's contemplation of her words was cut short when he saw someone from his past, which would be fine except this person should have been dead. If it were him, and his senses were saying it was, the man was a problem and people could be in danger. Diana, may I call you that? He asked. She nodded and Naruto spun her while turning 180 degrees. When Diana returned, she was now facing the direction Naruto had been and let out a small gasp. No longer needing to request she scope him, he moved on. I take it you know that man too, Naruto said. Yes, but it should be impossible. He'd be well into his hundreds if that were the same man. How do you know him? She asked, and he hesitated. A half-truth might work or burn a bridge, and if nothing else, Naruto needed her to believe him. During the Markovian Revolution, he was known as the Butcher of Markovia, and he especially liked experimenting on the children of the revolutionaries. If you're having trouble believing him to be the same man you knew, I don't blame you, as he died in the final days of the revolution. How do you know that? Diana asked. At 11 years old I took out his right eye with a spoon and slit his throat with a broken teacup. The music stopped with Naruto's statement. The princess of the Amazons stared at the Uzumaki as if seeing him for the first time. Naruto understood. Not everyone was cool with being a child mercenary, but this wasn't a time for a heart-to-heart. It seems someone wants an audience, Naruto observed as a well-dressed blonde woman approached. The time it took for Diana to look toward the woman and back again, Naruto had vanished. Outside of the gala, Naruto felt a blast of negative emotions. He tracked the source of the negativity to a staging area for multiple gunmen. Remember, the one said, we target the princess. Grab and go, put down any heroes, and haul ass to the extraction point. Having heard his fill, Naruto blurred into action. It was over before any of the 7 could react. He rummaged through their flak jackets and found zip ties. He bound their wrists and their ankles. Picking up the MP5, Naruto shot several times into the air but magnetically pulled the bullets back. Lighting a small bush on fire, so there could be no mistake, Naruto departed once he heard people nearing. 2 hours later, Naruto had his laptop up doing research on Kaznia. Of the guest list he retrieved, she wasn't the only princess in attendance but the only connection with the man going by Vandal Savage 3. He didn't have much as the country wasn't a hotbed of international news and he didn't understand Kaznian, but from what he could find the country was a medium-sized economy, though struggling due to King Gustav's diverting money to the International Space Station. There were a scant few articles on increased political repression and strong-arm tactics, not full-on totalitarian, but the king was certainly warming up to it. If Vanda kept to pattern, then he may have manipulated the king into focusing on the space station and stoked the outrage of the people. He may have even made the military loyal to him. He couldn't discover what his title within the government was, only that he was a high-ranking official. It was thin, nothing linking to a solid conclusion, but Naruto believed Vandal was planning something. He was stuck, he had no contacts within international law enforcement, he had no proof and therefore no leg to stand on. It was frustrating, but there wasn't much he could do. He had a restless night of sleep, his mind refusing to settle down. Knowing any kind of travel would be rare until things settled down at LexCorp, Naruto kicked around Paris for a few days. He hadn't done much beyond walking around, but it felt good to be free of his laptop and of the various responsibilities he'd placed on himself. Not that he regretted them, but being periodically unburdened was nice. It was at a nearby patisserie that Naruto learned the king of Kaznia was paralyzed. His daughter, Princess Audrey, would ascend to the throne, and would be marrying her intended, Vandal. It was a coup. The only question was if the princess was in on it or not. He recalled her was the woman that wanted to speak to Diana after their dance. He hadn't read her beyond the surface, so he had no idea what she was like. He shook his head, none of this should matter. If she were involved, then one dictator replaced another, and he'd hoped the people would rise up and the international community would support them. If she wasn't, then she likely wasn't long for this world. Another thing that didn't sit well with him was the space station. If Vandal was diverting resources to it, then was there a reason beyond sowing discord? Naruto was at an impasse. Something was happening. It likely wasn't good, but he didn't have enough information to spur anyone to act. Inaction felt unacceptable, but direct action was dangerously arrogant. He couldn't just involve himself in a nation's governmental affairs with no understanding of the dynamics, the facts on the ground. The people might want Vandal in charge. Was it right to act if that were the case? Was it right to do nothing if two people were going to be murdered or falsely imprisoned in service to a power play? The only firm conclusion he could land on was he needed more information. Unfortunately, it was not information he'd be able to ascertain remotely, which meant infiltrating Kaznia and its royal palace. He wasn't excited by the notion, but espionage was better than attacking wrongly or not and allowing something vile to happen. He dialed Mr. Wintergreen and requested his flight be pushed back for a few days. It was fortunate that Kaznia wasn't too far away, only 2 hours at his mid-pace. Naruto got dressed in some tack gear he kept on a scroll. Basic dark pants and a turtleneck, black boots, and a cloth face mask to cover his whiskers. Naruto finished the ensemble with a mesh-lined, knee-length, and long-sleeved jacket. It was baggy and the hood covered his hair comfortably. Naruto departed the city, keeping it at Mach 1 until he got to more rural areas, turned it up. It was just after sunset when he arrived at his destination. He instantly heard sounds of combat, and people fleeing. It appeared he was too late. He heard multiple people bellow that nothing could be done, and soon saw an asteroid aimed for the palace. Not having much time, he couldn't put full effort into it, but Naruto formed the biggest raisin shuriken he could, given the constraints, and tossed at the falling heavenly object. The chakra spear met space rock and decimated most of it, but a large shard still crashed into the palace. After his attack, Naruto blended into the shadows. From the conversations he could overhear and understand, the detective and Diana were there trying to protect the newly installed queen while her husband revealed himself to be a madman. He stayed hidden while everyone cleared out, and when he was sure he was alone, he made his way into the wreckage of the palace. He watched as the butcher, Vandal, rose up and cackled madly. He watched the man heal, his madness deepening as his health improved. Naruto unsealed and unsheathed his katana. In a flash and 2 swings, Vandal was dissected at the waist and beheaded. Not interested in taking chances, Naruto concentrated his chakra and created a deep pit for Vandal to fall. The sage manipulated the earth to close up and bury the madman. He bent down and touched the earth, placing a seal that would alert him should Vandal ever unearth himself. Once done, he disappeared into the night, and was back in Paris before anyone noticed he was missing. In the Batwing, Diana stared out the cockpit window. It had been a trying few days, but they prevailed in the end. She was thankful for that, grateful that they unseated a dictator, but there were pieces to the puzzle that didn't quite add up. The rogue Kaznian special forces that were rounded up and detained, and the strange ball of energy that destroyed most of the asteroid. She'd assumed Batman had taken down the military men, but he'd denied it. And while it could have been Naruto, a part of her doubted it as they were left alive. Wouldn't he have killed them? The ball of energy was even more perplexing. She'd never seen anything like it. And its aftermath looked like a vortex of wind. Could it have been Naruto? Possibly. He may have managed to piece some things together, but was he there simply to kill Vandal, or something else? Lastly, she thought back to their short exchange. He'd revealed himself to have been a child soldier, and had clearly done things no child should be in a position to do. She grew up in a warrior culture, trained from a young age in the art of combat, but her people never sent children to the front lines unless there was no other way. That Lex sent Naruto to such a conflict made her wonder how the experiences shaped the young man. Was there something that happened in the revolution that explained his disdain for heroes? Diana had hoped to start to see what Cal saw, and she was only left with more questions. Well, she did know one thing: he was quite the dancer. Naruto's first day back at LexCorp had gone smoothly, though he hadn't missed much as he worked remotely. He was seeing to establishing a governmental affairs department, aghast that Lex hadn't done so. Apparently the man was used to bribing officials when he wanted something. He had other plans he was considering. The work culture was slowly starting to shift so he could focus elsewhere. He wanted to help build interstate, high-speed rail that would have stops in more rural communities. He wanted to design community health centers in those communities as well. A good relationship with the state government was mandatory to get that done and have it all be above board. He had a lot more he desired to do, but knew a methodical approach was needed. A great idea can be killed by poor execution, a good idea elevated by great execution. He just had to be patient and focused, but there was no doubt he could achieve these ends. He spent so much time being an executive that he didn't get much time to tinker. Lex hadn't been all that progressive in his management style, so it freed him up to build outrageous machines. Naruto wanted to give himself a year to establish changes before he split his focus. A buzz from Mercy broke him from his thoughts. It seemed the new PR specialist she hired was coming up for a first meet. He had her resume on file, so pulled it up. Linda Kay. He skimmed the name, not really recognizing it. National University graduate, worked at Catco Media. She certainly seemed qualified, not that Naruto doubted Mercy. He heard a knock on the door and gave permission for entry. As soon as he saw her, the new hire, Naruto took back every kind thing he thought about Mercy. She was a hack. Probably put raisins in potato salad and kicked small kids. Worst of all, she was in league with the pajama people. As evidenced by the person sitting in front of him, red cardigan covering her attire, unnecessary wireframes on her face, and loosely curled hair. All given focus by her knowing gaze and smug smile. Linda Kay. Danvers reporting for duty, sir, she said. A twitch formed over his left eye and she giggled in response. You're fired, Naruto said in all seriousness. He got laughed at in response. Why did you stay? It's a common question asked of abuse victims. Why stay near? Why continue to love someone that harms you? Assuming it isn't an attempt to victim blame, the answer is simple. They are conditioned. Harley knew the process, she'd studied it, and could quote chapter and verse the literature on intimate terrorism. Isolation, emotional abuse, the honeymoon period, making the abused feel responsible. The tactics are designed to make sure the target doesn't stray. Of course, Joker was never as violent as when she tried to leave. It was her life. The supervillainy meant most people didn't care, as she was actively harming others or they believed she deserved it for that very reason. Harley wasn't bitter about that. She was a victim, it was an objective fact, but she'd victimized people herself. Being a victim didn't make you a good person, and you didn't have to be a good person to be a victim. Why any of this mattered was Joker was dead. Truly dead, and her Ivy had arranged it. She hated the man, but the relationship between abuser and abused is never straightforward. Her staying away, her refusal to backslide was often a matter of discipline, as she felt the tug of the cycle pull at her, the gravity of her Mr. J grounding her to a normal she no longer wanted or no longer wanted to want. The hatred was and may always, to some extent, be mixed with something else. She wasn't proud of the fact, but conditioned responses take time to overcome. Harley was glad then. Ivy understood her relief wasn't expressed jubilantly. She wasn't in mourning, per se, but she did feel conflicted. That was the lingering damage of his mark on her, and something she'd have to work hard to remove. But for now, she just wanted to clear her mind and zone out with some trashy entertainment. Her go-to was celebrity gossip mags. As Harley thumbed through the periodical, catching up on the ins and outs of the lives of very famous people, she stopped at a blurb. It was a picture of Naruto with Wonder Woman dancing at some fancy shindig, looking quite cozy, at least at first glance. But ignoring the captions about a possible new love connection or speculating on if he had a type, his face revealed something altogether different. His gaze averted, eyes have lidded and unfocused, suggested he was somewhere else, trapped in a memory. She saw the signs of pain, of that very particular ache that was caused by someone embedded deep within your heart. It was the first time Naruto felt real to her, as she could relate to the emotion. She never considered his and Ivy's relationship all that real. He was barely old enough to drink, and was some naive techie do-gooder. Harley chalked the relationship up to Ivy being bored or leading him around by the nose because he was wealthy and easy to control. Now, having seen a glimpse into his response, and how Ivy mourned there, and Harley couldn't dismiss it anymore. They'd had something real, something important, and she'd allowed herself to get in between them. Since he wasn't just some boy toy or a looming threat, Harley could acknowledge that much. Soft, even footfalls released her from her deep consideration, the door opening soon after. Hey, Harley greeted while closing the gossip rag and admiring how Ivy's athletic wear complimented her. Hey, Ivy responded in kind, heading straight to the kitchen for a drink. How was the run? Harley asked knowingly. Ivy made annoyed sounds, stopping to drink some water. Someone needs to invent a pill that lets you maintain any level of fitness you achieve. I hate running, she complained, causing Harley to snicker. You'd be the wealthiest person in the world if you could manage that. Maybe we need to steal a lab, Harley suggested, only semi-joking. Problem with that is I essentially hate everyone with notable exceptions, so it'd just make me the most hunted person on the planet, and if that's my fate then at least let it be because I eradicated the world's oil supply, not because I'm hoarding a super diet pill, Ivy said as she sat on the arm of the couch. Harley tapped her chin in deliberation before grinning. That would be one of the greatest acts of supervillainy in the history of the world. Just one of? Ivy asked. Well, it's no outer space railgun. Ivy scoffed. Men. advanced to the point of space travel and still just want to bash things with rocks. The vegetation manipulator walked to her shower to the sounds of Harley's chuckles. Damn it, Eiling shouted as he slammed the large, circular, conference table. His companion barely reacted to his outward show of frustration. The general left his seat and started pacing. Now we can't even get him on the phone. That glorified assistant stonewalls us, he yelled. Who does that upstart think he is? His ferocity at the show of disrespect and perceived arrogance of the pampered rich boy belied Eiling's true feeling on civilians. A career military man, he'd long tired of civilians slowing down or preventing him from doing his real work. He was trained and paid to defend America against its enemies. To his mind, anyone that made his job more difficult was no better than the enemies themselves. He didn't need to appear before subcommittees, and he certainly didn't need to suck up to legacy brats that didn't know a single day of hard work. The person with the stronger hand, at least for the moment, Waller answered. She'd hoped the Uzumaki had a little more Lex in him, but it appeared he was committed to the straight life. Normally, she wouldn't begrudge him, but Lex made promises, and with him dead it fell to the son to fulfill. His refusal put him in her way, and she'd worked too hard to let that stand. I have half a mind to ship the boy to a black site and get his cooperation the old-fashioned way. Yes, let's kidnap one of the most visible billionaires on the planet and torture him. No way that doesn't backfire. Eiling shot her an annoyed glare. Then what, Amanda? She turned on the large screen adjacent from the table. It displayed 3 locations on a map. We suspect Lex kept the weaponry designs in his private terminal. We can't access it externally and wouldn't have time to do so internally. So a smash and grab at LexCorp's central headquarters? Yes. Now, these other 2 locations are places he kept off his books. It's possible Naruto doesn't know anything about them. I believe the package resides in one of those 2 spaces. 3 simultaneous operations on heavily secured targets. We'd lose a lot of men and basically should we're behind it. If kidnapping the unpatriotic, peace freak is out, then what? Could we use that? The general asked, having calmed down and ceased his pacing. Waller shook her head. Hamilton says it isn't ready yet, and he isn't sure when it will be. However, I'm working on getting us people, highly skilled but not so valuable that we could not disavow them should the need arise. It will take some time, these things do. And if the operations should fail? Eiling asked. One always had to plan for failure to manage the blowback. As I said, Naruto has the stronger hand at the moment, but any experienced card player will tell you that you aren't playing the cards but the person across from you. If we couldn't get him to volunteer his assistance, and if we can't take what we need by force, we'll simply have to go after something that could make him change his mind. Luckily for us, I have a good idea of what that is, Waller said as she pulled up a file photo of Ivy. Eiling smiled. He had no issue with coercion if it were for the benefit of America. Bruce landed on a stack of containers, the night cloaking his very presence as he surveyed the scene. Gotham's underworld had been thrown into chaos at the death of Joker. The irony of the embodiment of anarchy and destruction operating as a check on crime was not lost on the crime fighter. Every crew with some semblance of muscle wanted to take his spot. What started as covert assassinations bled into open warfare on the streets of his city. An arms race followed, and that's what led him here, a smuggled shipment of automatic weapons. He recognized some of these men. They worked for the Maroni family, a leading contender in the War of Succession. The primary competitor was Black Mask, a man who had quietly built up his operations and was now bucking to be the new king of crime. Neither group was as flashy as his normal rogues. He could get street-level enforcers, but working his way up the chain was a slow, exhausting grind. Bruce felt himself nearing a breaking point. Even for him, he'd been going at his investigations and patrols for longer and longer hours. He was on call with the Justice League, as well. Something was going to give, but it couldn't be him. He had to surpass his every limitation. His crusade required it, so he demanded it of himself. The sound of screeching tires and men barking warnings was Bruce's alert that this was not going to be the straightforward takedown he'd hoped for. Moving quickly across the stacks, he heard the gunfire being exchanged before he saw it. Two-Face and his men were there, probably to hijack the weapons. Black, armored sedans with the doors propped open for cover and Tommy guns blasting away. Several of Maroni's men were already shot dead. He needed to act. Bruce threw a series of batarangs to disarm as many assailants as he could. Those who weren't affected fired wildly in the location they thought he was, but he'd long since moved. He swung down and kicked one of Two-Face's men, knocking him into the car and unconscious. He slid across the top of the car and tackled another shooter, punching him repeatedly to knock the man out. Swiftly he threw down several smoke pellets and grappled to higher ground as the attention was focused on him. Methodically, he picked off the pinstriped suit-wearing men and Maroni's thugs. Done and tired, he barely avoided being run over by a container truck, the driver having hidden the entire time. Grappling to the truck, Bruce hangs on top, slowly crawling forward as the driver speeds, running into parked cars and causing damage to the light posts. The Dark Knight reached for a small disc out of his utility belt and threw it ahead of them. As soon as the truck drove over the device, it activated, releasing an electromagnetic pulse, killing the engine. Bruce counted himself fortunate the back of the truck didn't flip over as he watched the driver try to flee. He caught up with him fast enough and took him down hard. He breathed deeply as he felt his muscles ache. He'd been slow. Hadn't expected a rival gang to show up, hadn't been aware of the driver. He'd start making real mistakes soon if he weren't diligent. "You're a hard man to track down," a voice in the alley said. "What do you have for me?" he asked. The question walked into the light with a manila folder he handed over to his fellow vigilante. "Not as much as you may like, but I had some problems with people trying to piggyback off my work, so I had to cut it short." "Who?" Bruce asked. The question was not an easy man to follow behind. Some may call him crazy, but he was a top investigator. "League of Shadows, as best I can tell. Be careful with his information. Preparation is one thing, bringing him to the attention of your enemies is another." The faceless man said no more as he departed. Bruce summoned the Batmobile and entered, putting it on autopilot as he read the file. Initially, it wasn't much more than what he had. Even with what Diana told him, the question wasn't able to confirm Naruto was in Markovaya. The real revelation came when he got to Naruto's birth parents, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Not familiar with either name, Bruce read with rapt attention. Both were orphans, both lived in Japan and died on the day Naruto was born. Their identities and verifying information was solid for anyone not bothering to look too closely, or as closely as he would. But the question was just the person to dig that deep. Kushina had a much more extensive family history, but both showed signs of being fake. Bruce concluded Lex paid a hefty price to forge those documents. It meant he had no idea where Naruto came from or if the Uzumaki was human. Could that be why Clark is so protective? He wondered. The detective vowed to add the information to what else, as scant as it was, he knew about the young man. He knew Clark wouldn't support him building a dossier and gaming out countermeasures, but if it ever became necessary, they'd thank him. He was sure. Naruto looked up to the sky that wasn't really the sky, illuminated by a light that wasn't the sun, and filled his lungs with air that was anything but. The soft grass had cushioned his fall. It felt nice, but it always did here. Except for the geezer sage handing him his ass. "Are you done, Naruto-kun?" Hagoromo asked. Naruto hissed in annoyance, knowing he wasn't the one to decide that. The sage smiled. "And here I thought you had something new you wanted to show me." Naruto rolled his eyes. He hadn't told him he had something new to reveal, though he had. There was a lot of unnecessary conversation cut out between empaths, but it also made it near impossible to have secrets, especially from one as experienced as Old Man Sage. Naruto shifted his weight to his back, bringing his legs up as he spun in an attempt to leg sweep Hagoromo. The Otsutsuki flipped over the attempt and landed softly. He knew something was amiss as soon as his feet touched the ground. The extended shadow from Naruto's to his location revealed what it was. Impressive. There was an entire clan that developed a ninjutsu variant. Shadow possession technique, they called it. Hagoromo saw the smile on Naruto's face wavered slightly. "You know, if you just told me what all they could do there, I might take my chakra manipulation further without thinking I'm inventing something new," Naruto complained. He understood the man hated ninjutsu, but not sharing the knowledge didn't change that it existed. Hagoromo nodded. It was a fair point. He used his chakra absorption ability to free himself, but grew confused when Naruto created 2 shadow clones and then started dancing. "Ha ha ha, no Rinnegan abilities, right? This is my win." The Sage of Six Paths looked to his creation, Kurama, and questioned, "Why is Naruto dancing like a defective children's toy?" Kurama rolled his eyes as he answered, "It's called animation, father. It's a dance style that relies on fluid motion with controlled, robotic movements thrown in for dynamic effect." Hagoromo scratched at his beard, truly finding the dance weird. Does everyone dance like this? Perplexed at the trio moving seamlessly in sync. Did he practice this with clones? No. How odd. Well, I believe that will be enough for today, so if you are done gyrating like a honeybee, you may depart, Naruto-kun. Naruto rolled his eyes but activated the seal to leave the artificial space. With the two alone, Hagoromo looked to Kurama. "I sense great conflict within him, Kurama. How is he managing everything?" "He's doing the best he can," Kurama answered, but it did not quell the sage's concerns, so he pressed on. "And that little habit of his?" he questioned. Kurama refused to answer, but he wouldn't question him further even if he wished Naruto-kun wouldn't engage in such behavior. He sensed troubling times ahead for his descendant, and hoped he could meet them. Naruto appeared in his bedroom with a smile. It felt good to be thoroughly pushed even if the old man only used taijutsu. Being active brought about clarity, so he welcomed it. He also thought about the space, the physical representation of his mindscape, and how Hagoromo, his parents, and he worked together to devise the private training area that would also give Kurama a bit of freedom. It was probably the most advanced Fuinjutsu project ever devised, and the only people that could appreciate it were the ones involved in its construction. He removed his gray compression shirt and tossed it into the hamper, the tight shirt clinging to his sweat-laden body. He had about an hour before he was to start his day, so needed to hurry. 45 minutes later, Naruto was showered and dressed. Lex favored suits, but unless it was necessary, Naruto went with informal wear. He was glad he was in an era where it didn't matter as much, so his blue, V-neck, long-sleeve t-shirt, dark denim jeans, and red Chuck Taylors didn't draw a lot of attention. Naruto grabbed a high-calorie protein bar, one of the ways he was able to sate his very large appetite without having to sit down for a full meal. It also happened to be pretty tasty, the current one. Apple cinnamon flavored the trip out of the penthouse, and to his car was routine, until he entered the car. "Kara, what are you doing here?" he asked. "You have public appearances today, so I need to be there, especially since you refused media training." Naruto easily slid into the black SUV and closed the door. "I don't need media training. Who needs to be trained to tell the truth?" "It isn't that simple, Naruto," Kara said in disbelief. He always seemed so cynical to her, so she couldn't square how naive he was about the media. Things could be twisted, cut, and presented under a false light. "Sure it is. I can't control what people do with what I say once I've said it, but I can be simple and direct while speaking. Besides, I have no board and I have no stockholders. As long as I can continue to pay my employees, none of this matters to me. It's all bullshit." "You can't dismiss everything unimportant to you as having no value in general," Kara pressed. She was good at her job, and if Naruto worked with her, he'd see. "Do you know what people think about you? Do you know I don't care? They think you're crazy. Maybe supervillain crazy or not, but definitely crazy. They see you as the boy king running amok at LexCorp because no one can stop you," Kara informed him. "And? Let them talk. How are you going to attract talent if everyone thinks you're a lunatic? Who says I have to? This obsession with getting the best just isn't for me. People will want to work for me because they'll be treated fairly, paid well, and encouraged to have a life outside of work. I don't hold cult rallies and make all my employees wear a company t-shirt while they act as if I'm the second coming of Jesus Christ. Do you see the fucking crazy people that get praised in the business press? Narcissistic fucks down the line who pay themselves entirely too much and rarely generate the value they take credit for. And what, you want me to win those people over?" "Yes," Kara exclaimed, fighting the urge to pull at her hair. "Because perception matters." "Oh, so you're saying that if potential employees have a negative perception of me, the reality of what I'm trying to do may be hampered? That I may be doing long-term harm by not fostering a good public image? That the balance sheets matter less than what people believe, and from outreach initiatives to joint governmental projects may hang in the balance?" "Yes," Kara shouted. Naruto looked at her neutrally, as if he didn't understand why she'd be so annoyed. "Well, why didn't you just say that? I'm not a mind reader, you know." He laughed when she sat back in a huff. She wanted the job, so she'd have to deal with him being selectively petulant for his amusement. He'd normally never behave in such a manner, but the pajama people operated under a different standard of etiquette. Besides, if she wanted him to ignore those times she just slipped off without a word, then she'd have to leave him to his games. "You have the All-City Science Fair Finals as our first stop. Try to be uplifting and appropriate." "Do we do something like this for the arts?" Naruto asked, ignoring her jab. "Not to my knowledge. Why?" "Just think we should encourage both. I'll get with Mercy and see what we can do for next year. What else?" "You have a television interview with Kirk Van Drake." "That?" Naruto found the man to be a blowhard.